What is the most important thing we can be doing to help win the cops for peace and for freedom? This is a question, my friends, and it seems to me the answer is we got to talk to them. They are human beings. Underneath that costume and that shiny tin badge, there is a soul. And many of you, like me, have friends that are cops, people that are in the sheriff or local PD, and maybe even the state patrol. And we played sports with them, and they're not bad intentioned guys. They are humans. And so we want to discuss today how to talk with cops about morality. It's a very important show. Thank you for being here on the Freedom Lovers Show. I'm your host, David James Rodriguez, and we have a special guest, Mr. Robert Landen from the peacefulpolice.com. And he's been developing a way to speak to cops and any authorities for that matter about peace, morality, and basic justice, basic, consistent human respect and dignity. And I've learned a lot over the past few weeks that we've done this. And this is our third episode here with the show, and we have some other clips to add later. So before we jump into learning some of the phrases, the strategy, the techniques, and the caveats, let's welcome to the show Mr. Robert Landen. Thank you for joining us again, sir. And you might have to unmute yourself.
All right. Well,
yes, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I enjoy this every week. It's doing good. I like it.
Yes, and so last week we did some role playing. We had some. I was playing the cop, and the other member here was also playing a cop, and we could feel the natural anxiety, I guess, with any type of role play. But imagine there's an authority there with a gun and qualified immunity can be cause some anxiety. But this is what this is for. We want to develop the mindsets and things which you have, Robert. And one of the things I really appreciate is when you see a cop, you're so eager to go talk with these guys. And I have a quick story, and we'll turn it over to you. Last night, I was driving with my friend in my car, and we're turning left, and the cop's waiting over there, and the cop's right there. And I said, "Oh, that cop, I want to talk to you, man. I want to talk to you." And she's like, no. I said, okay, well, we'll see what happens. But I'm not afraid to talk to cops now. I want to talk to cops. And then we pull up, turning left. He flips a U-turn and comes back around. And literally, we're sitting next to each other, side by side, her windows down. On the back of my car is my human rights investigator sign with no plates. And I'm looking through her window at the driver, waiting for him to look over. He didn't even look over. So I don't know if he doesn't want to speak to me and go viral talking about the laws and morality. But my friends, I think the intention is clear. We have to talk with these guys, or we have an opportunity to talk with these guys. There is no have tos. And generally, as you know, you own yourself. You are the sovereign man and woman on the land. And you're born free. That's your birthright from nature or God. And this is the issue of our lifetime, it seems to me. So that's why we have Robert on here. We're grateful, Robert, you taking time out of your travels to join us and talk about some of the approaches that you have, because one of the really superior methods you have is your mindset and your intention, knowing what is right, what is true, and what is honest and good. I think that is how we win, standing on the reality that we didn't harm anybody and there is no damage to property caused by us. So Robert, thanks again, and feel free to open it up, whatever you want to start with. Some of the people joining us are here for the first time, some been here for the previous episodes, but feel free to take the floor and open it up any way that you like for some of the people as we open up, and we'll have question and answers as well. So Katrina, Mike, and Richard, if you want to join us in the comments or join us audibly or video, feel free to join us. So Robert, feel free to take it away and open up whatever you want to begin with today.
Well, I want to begin with getting other people out there winning cops over. I mean, if there's a better way, I'll entertain the idea, and I'll do it. But there's no better way that I've found. I've been doing this for a long time. And if we win over the cops, we're basically declawing the politicians. If we can get the cops to ignore the politicians, and everyone can ignore the politicians, they can come up with dictates one after another. Nobody will care. Nobody will, that's the way it's got to be. And I don't see any other way of getting there other than winning over the guns of the government. If we can win these guys over and they can start doing things based on their discretion and moral principles, and they do only things they can morally justify, not legally justify. You can legally justify murder. You can't morally justify it. So you get them to do that, they feel better about themselves. Their lives become more peaceful. They love you for opening their eyes to this. Everybody wins. They go back to work and they start selling their friends at work and saying, this is a better way of doing it. We'll use our discretion. We'll leave peaceful people alone. And then all of a sudden, we're free, right? I mean, the politicians can run around and babble all they want, but if they don't have somebody willing to kill peaceful people for disobedience, they got nothing. They can't even collect taxes because no one will be willing to use their guns. But see, here's the thing. Right now, it seems like most of the cops are willing to kill peaceful people for disobedience. It seems like the guys with good intentions are silent. They're not allowed to speak out against it. They'll get fired. It should be the other way around. So I'm hoping this will change the tide and we get more people out there doing this. Like you, I want you out there winning a cop over, hopefully on video, so we can show other people and start getting this thing cranked up. Fair enough?
I love it. Yes, that's fair enough. And I was going to put in the comments, but I'll put out there for the video for the people. We want to record this, right? Because Robert's been successful. You said about 2/3 of the time having encounters with 30 cops, and 2/3 of the time they either say they're going to quit their job or say they're going to rethink their life or something. They shake your hand, they let you go with no plates, no driver's license, no insurance, and it's all peaceful. And there's a peaceful resolution. This is part of your curriculum, which you stated, and we can put in the comments here. So as people start to practice this, we don't want to just like, hey, I did it today. We want to say, where's the video of you doing that? Because it's very exciting for onlookers, whether it's you or I, or people who are like, I don't know if I have courage like Robert or, David or any of these people out there, but we do know that it does take that courage. So figuring out the camera situation is going to be important so that as everybody starts talking with these cops, then we can capture it for the record and show they're regular guys. But as you said, we have to declaw the politicians because they're the guys ordering these ridiculous edicts and dictates and commands. When you teach these principles, you talk about discretion, and that's always, I think, a really important thing to help people understand, is that cops do have discretion. And if you talk to them about that, this is something that they maybe forgot about because their energy and adrenaline is everything is amped up in the moment and they got to do what they're told. But as you stay calm and appeal to that discretion, appeal to their moral code, that's one way out. So do you actually do you use the word moral code, moral compass, or you just stick to moral principles?
No, I just say, how can you morally justify it? I don't even say principles. I mean, this is what would be asked on the stand, right? Witness stand. What are you going to tell the jury? And the thing is that I want people to put this option on the table. See, that's the problem, is people aren't putting the peaceful option on the table. They're not bringing up the discretion that they were taught in training, that they can do. They can walk away anytime they want. They can't morally justify not walking away, but they can morally justify leaving you alone, right? So if you can win them over right there at that point, you don't have to worry about going to court or a court date or trying to win over the prosecutor, which is nearly impossible so far, but I'm working on them. Oh, my light went out, didn't it? Okay. I'm working on it'd be great to get a prosecutor. Now, the other thing is, you can practice. We could do this over the phone. I'm willing to kickstart it. Well, we should set up a time during the day in the morning and make some calls and listen to me try to win them over right over the phone. I mean, I don't care who it is. You want to call a judge? We'll call a judge. And then you guys can hear it. I'm telling you, it's very fun. You'll love it. I should do it more often, but really I have no incentive doing it right now because it's only me. Now, if there was other people out there doing this, I would do it more often, right? But I'm not even scratching the surface if I sit there and do calls all day. But I think we should, where other people can hear us win them over on a call. And even if we don't win them over, you'll hear me try. And even if they're hard asses about it, you'll hear me pull up my best, right? So everyone wins, even if we don't win them over. You'll hear me try to get them to win over, And hey, if you want to get a prosecutor on this, I'll bump it up to $300. Somebody get a prosecutor on Zoom. Oh, and I was thinking about where the payoff would be, and I'm going to write a new oath. Okay, you print it up, or you can have it on your phone or whatever, and you have the cop sign his new oath. What do you think of that?
Yes, that would be
Then you
nice.
get the 200.
I'd love to see the oath. Yeah, let's see it, man. I think that's a great idea.
Well, it's real simple. Leave peaceful people alone, pretty much. I mean, you can write your own. It just, yeah. I swear to ignore politicians' opinions when it comes to peaceful people. Blah blah blah. I mean, if you want to make it sound all legal and shit, I don't know.
No, I think simpler is better because many of these officers, as I am, and many of us have been so dumbed down that big words intimidate us, and ultimately simplicity is power. So it doesn't have to get legalese and all the various.
No, but I want that commitment before I give up $200. Is what I'm saying. I will pay
Okay.
$200 for a signed new pledge from a cop on video, Zoom or otherwise, out in the street, and they sign a peaceful police pledge. Real simple, it'll probably be less than 2 or 3 sentences. And then they get the $200. But it can't be staged or anything either. I'm not gonna pay for a stage scene. I want it to be a real cop, hopefully a sheriff. And if anyone can get a sheriff on the line with me, that'd be great. I challenge any sheriff to get on Zoom with me. That'd be awesome. That
Yeah.
would be really good.
Right. Well, so there has to be stipulations because anytime you get money involved, hey, who doesn't want $200 or $300? So for the cop, they have to sign it, you said, or what is the
Yeah, sign a little,
condition?
just like if you're like I've been in sales my whole life and the deal isn't done until the signature's on the paper, right? So that's how you get paid, is on signatures. I'm used to doing that. I've done that my whole life. So if we're going to put out a prize, then all it's really got to be is, and once you learn all of this, you'll be able to close the cop in 5 or 10 minutes. It won't take long, but you got to learn every response for every response, right? So you can get them to that point. And then you just say, great, you're on board. That's awesome. Here's a new pledge. Everything we just talked about right there in writing, just sign right there. Boom. I'll send you $200.
That would
Yeah.
be amazing.
I'm paying $200 a deal.
That would be great. The challenge is
Dude, I
how
want you
to
to
do
win
that.
it.
Yes.
I want
Yeah.
you to win it, man. Get out there and get these guys. Are
Well,
you
yeah,
too
this
busy?
is well,
You're
this
pretty
is what we're
busy, guy.
doing. Yeah, we've been doing a lot of stuff, and I mean, right now we have cases. I have cases regarding right to travel stuff, obstructing justice. One of them was when they were towing my car, and me and my two buddies were behind the car, and literally I stand there behind my car as these guys are about to steal my car, and they said they weren't going to arrest us, and then they ultimately did, and that was obstructing justice. So stopping somebody from stealing your car, that's obstructing justice. And so anyways, we got some court stuff going on, but yeah, so we want to go through it. And if you want, I can post the 30 points that you sent me in the past, or if you have a different direction where you'd like to go, because there are some new people on here for the first time and they want to hear from yourself. How do you go about talking to cops, and what is your mindset? We talked about before, you want to talk to the cops because you want to help them. Can you tell the people why you believe you can help cops and how you go about doing that?
Well, they all the cops, not all of them, okay, a third of them, well, maybe less than that, maybe it wasn't that many, only a handful out of 30, 40 cops that I've talked to. Most of the cops just walked away, but a lot of them, maybe a third of them, were really interested, were really like blown away. And so I remember those, right? I remember them shaking my hand, looking me in the eye, thanking me, right? They felt better. They felt more empowered, more in control, living by their moral principles, right? Their doing things they can morally justify. It's all simple now. I don't have to argue law or natural law or anything, right? It's any harm been done? No? Okay, have a nice day. Real simple. It's a simple life for them. And they love it. So yeah, every time I see a cop, I'm drawn to at least show this to them. Like, hey, look, they don't have to take it, but they can at least see it. At least I feel obligated to show it to them and give them an opportunity to grab it and be a better person and make life more peaceful for everyone around them. It's yeah, it just keeps me going. And like I said, I've been through hell with some of these evil cops, but they haven't stopped me. They're gonna have to kill me to stop me. Oh wait, I don't want to give them any ideas.
Right. Yeah, the power of our words,
Well,
as somebody who's speaking for freedom, we got to be aware that we create with our words, but we could also speak freedom into existence, and whatever the situation is, these cops don't like doing what they're doing. Would you say most of them, the good guys, what percentage of good cops exist in your opinion?
I mean, I can only judge the ones I've run into, but I'd say 2/3 of them are easy to talk to. A third of them are difficult. Probably a tenth of them are just downright evil. They're really bad. The ones I've run into, of course, and we're only going on 30, 40 cops. It could be maybe 50, but that's not even scratching the surface. I mean, I'd have to go through 100 or a couple hundred to see where they're at. But and it depends on what area you're in. I mean, some departments are just so evil. Every single cop in there is crooked and abusive and nasty, and they use law as an excuse to torture and torment and punish peaceful people, and they get off on it, and it's terrifying. So you got to watch out. And I'll tell you the way I do this with using my moral approach, it flushes out the evil ones, right? They either have to fake it till they make it, or they have to admit they're going to be evil. But at least it puts them on the spot. I'm sick and tired of people getting caged and beat up, and they never even showed the cop that he has discretion and a peaceful resolution option for him to choose, because it all goes right into the legal thing and the arguments over this opinion and that opinion and this law, so-called law. I mean, you just get lost in that stuff, man, and you end up losing in the end. The cop doesn't care. But if you put it on the cop, if you ask questions and if you get him to come up with the answers, now he's learning from himself. You're not teaching, you're not telling him stuff. You're simply asking him how he can morally justify it. You're offering him a peaceful option. You may have to push a little bit, like, what would you say to a jury if I put you on the witness stand? I've had to say that a couple of times, and it all depends. But we got to try, right? I mean, if there's a better option, then let me know. I'll do it. But for now, and for the last 6, 7 years, this has been the only thing I can see that's going to put a stop to this.
Right. Yes. Well, that's just so the audience knows here, there will be time here where you guys can be the devil's advocate, and we'll say just somebody in the car. And I want Robert, if you would go over your initial approach. I think dealing with drivers, travelers in their car is probably the most common. This is where most of us see cops. They pull us over for not putting our blinker on. They pull us over for not having our seatbelt on. I've gotten pulled over for holding a cell phone while driving. Really just tyrannical type situations, which I tried to fight in court, and I lost those 2 cases, had to be extorted. So Robert's approach is to prevent that. And at the moment the cop comes to the window, Robert, what are you saying, or what is the mindset? Well, let's say, go back up. When the lights are flashing, you're on the freeway or you're in a downtown area, your choice. What is your mindset as you're going through getting pulled over by these officers?
Well, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is, oh shit. Because it's a threat of violence, right? You got lights on you. You got a guy behind you with a delusion of authority. He's willing to kill peaceful people for disobeying his orders or the politician's dictates that he uses as excuses anyway. But really, I mean, you're dealing with a possible evil psychopath. So I'm prepared for that. But on the other hand, I imagine him shaking my hand and thanking me for showing him something he's never seen before. And I really, you know, like I said, I don't wait in the car for them to come up to me because I don't want them towering over me. I usually park in front of a camera somewhere, and I got cameras rolling, and I get out of the car and lock it and talk to them outside the car. Yeah, that could be dangerous for some people with some cops. I don't know, but I don't want them sniffing around my car. I don't want them looking in my car. I don't want to give them another excuse to pull another law out of their pocket and say, I got a right to do this and that and whatever. Because then that just makes the conversation harder to get going, right? Now you're stuck debating the blinking light or whatever. What I'm worried about, I'm concerned about, is this stranger with a gun forcing me off the road and coming up and making demands on me. You know, that's why when they say, I need to see your ID, I say, yeah, I wish I could, but I can't. It goes against my moral principles. You understand, right? And then they're usually like, what? Because they never heard that before.
They're like, moral principles. How would you describe it to a cop? They're like, moral principles. What do you mean?
Yeah, right. Let me see if I get the light on here again. Hold on a second. Yeah, I've never said, what do you mean? But I have had a cop say, well, moral principles are subjective, you know, everyone's got different opinions of what a moral principle is. And I'm like, well, I don't care about anyone else. No, they're not threatening me with a, you know, they're not armed, threatening to hurt me for disobedience. So I'm asking you, like, if you're on a witness stand, how would you morally justify to a jury? And then I've had some say, oh, law this and law that. And I say, I'm not talking, you know, I push it out of the way. I'm not talking about the law. I'm talking about human being, right? You're a human being, right? That's just a job, isn't it? So I'm just asking you how you as a human being can morally justify threatening a peaceful person with violence. It's a real simple question, right? And it takes them a while. You got to wait after you ask that question. You got to let them answer, let them mull it over. You may even have to repeat it a couple times till they really grasp what you're asking them. Because I mean, think of it. How often are they asked that? You know, they're almost never. You know, they're all they concerned about is how they can legally justify harming people, right? Oh, I got, the law says I can do this. The law says, I even saw a video where a cop was saying that exact words. He says, I'm allowed to do that. I'm allowed to take you out of your car. You're allowed. You mean you're allowed?
What would you
Right?
tell him? What would you tell
Who's your
him?
master? Who's your
Right.
master that's allowing you to harm peaceful people? And why would you want to be allowed to harm peaceful people? Is that a desire you've had since you were a child?
Right.
You know, where do you get this allowed? I mean, it's just,
What would
I
you
wish
tell
more
him?
people knew this.
Yeah, no, that's what's happening right now. We're creating, Robert, more people are learning this from you and I in this moment in the World Wide Web. So someone, you know, says, all right, you know, give me your ID. And you say, I wish I could. It just violates my moral principles. I can't do it. You understand? He says, well, the law allows me to pull you out of your car if I deem you are being defiant, or, you know, you are not cooperating, or you are obstructing my investigation. The law says I can do this. What would you tell him then?
Well, what if I told you that there were some rules that you never agreed to that allow me to shoot you for even pulling me over? I mean, would that
Yeah.
make it okay? I mean, look, it's written right here. Look, it says I can kill you for pulling me over.
Wait.
It's the same thing you're saying. You're saying there's a bunch of politicians wrote up a bunch of stuff that no one agreed to, and it allows you to threaten and harm peaceful people. Now, how can you morally justify that?
Well, I just doing my job, sir. You know, this is the training that they gave us, and you know, the law says I can, so I can.
Well, if I worked at Best Buy and they trained me to beat up customers that didn't give me money for stuff, I mean, right? Just put it right back on them. I mean,
Okay, so now what you just added was an analogy. Right. Well, what if I do it to you? Or what if I put on a, if I'm working for
Yeah.
a company?
What if my job said to go around and threaten and harm peaceful people? Would you be able to morally justify that? Well, of course not. Well, then how can you morally justify doing it?
Hmm. Right. And the ideal outcome is for them to go eyes big and say, oh my gosh, I am harming a peaceful person. Or what is the ideal outcome that you envision when you see the cops in your light and you're
Well,
like, oh shit, what is the ideal outcome?
they usually are like, I've never thought of it that way. I've heard that dozens of times. I never thought of it that way. I've had them say, yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. And then I go, but what? Because but always comes up. Because then they start thinking, well, geez, if I don't do this, then how am I going to get paid? And, how am I going to get pats on the back at work if I'm not generating revenue and stuff like, I mean, doing what they normally do. So it kind of throws them through a loop, but it's a better life for them. You know, they we want to get them to a point where they're selling their coworkers on this, right? I want them so excited about this that they can't wait to go to work and tell everyone else. I want them to invite me to even speak at their morning meetings so I can at least show them this options out there, that they can use discretion. And if people would start putting it on them, then they would start catching on. I mean, this isn't going to be, it's going to be a big hill to climb, right, to get this done, but we got to start somewhere, right? And so if you and I and a couple other people are out there doing this, and you get some videos out there and people can see that it's done. See, that's our biggest hurdle right now, is getting one video out there so people can see how it's done, start building some momentum, and then we start getting more people out there doing this. We build a whole sales team of people out there selling cops, winning them over, signing their new commitment to peaceful policing, and just keep that ball rolling. And hopefully you can keep it going after I'm dead and gone.
Well, yes, this is the concept called intergenerational freedom. I gave a speech about 2 years ago. It should be on my YouTube channel, but it's passing the torch. John Gatto was my mentor and friend for the school system, and I got to learn a lot about his approach in 30 years in the classroom. So yeah, I'll learn from you and pass it
Yeah,
along.
cool.
But it's about basically understand that we are the light, my friends. The people on this call and watching this later, the darkness is creeping in, and the way the darkness gets pushed out is I turn my light on, Robert turns his light on, you turn your light on, and it goes away. Cockroaches run away when you turn the lights on because they don't like the light. Same thing with these criminals and thugs, and we want them out of the police force. If you're violating humans, you're not allowed to harm peaceful people, even if the president, the governor, the mayor, the city councils, if they all agree that you're allowed to do it, they're not allowed to do it. You have a natural right from nature, from God, for your life, liberty, and property, and this is the next evolution of human consciousness. So, what else do you want to see? I just found the different like the 30 tips or 30 points. Let's talk about speaking to the good human inside the cops. This is something I struggle with because I've been trained. I've watched the cop block videos, the police videos, the Free Thought Project videos, and these cops are killing innocent people consistently, and nothing happens to them. So there's this underlying emotion that we have towards cops sometimes, but you seem to have overcome that. So how do you look into the cop as a good guy? Is it just looking at his
Well,
humanity, or what do you see?
well, I'm not, I don't, I know that a lot of them aren't good. I understand that. But what I'm trying to do is bring out the good side of them in that moment, right? So even if they're bad, they still have moments in their life where they treat people well, treat them good. Not all of them, but most of them that I've talked to. They're good with their neighbors and the community and all that. And this is barring all the downright evil ones. I'm talking about the ones that are actually living a decent life. And so what I want to do is I want to see the best that cop can be, right? That's who I want to talk to. The guy who's on moral high ground, talking to me about moral principles, about, you know, uh, being a good person. I don't want to see the evil cop, because all of them have the capability of being downright evil and thinking that it's their job, right? And they don't look at it as evil. They look at it as like they're being heroes by not taking shit from anybody, and they're tough. And so I don't want to see the tough guy. I want the guy who's inquisitive. So that's why I phrase the things the way I do. The way I word them is to get them to ask questions, get them curious about what I'm talking about. And that's usually happened. I've talked to some of them, shoot, over 40 minutes. We sat there and talked. And you can talk about all kinds of stuff after you get them to commit to a peaceful resolution. And after that, I'd like to start getting them to sign a new moral oath to being peaceful. That would be a good thing. Anyway, I'm trailing off.
No,
Did I
so
answer your
so
question?
that oath would be, I swear to not harm peaceful people, period. Is that the oath?
Yeah, basically, if no harm's been done, I do no harm. If no threats of violence, then no threats should be done. Just keeping it fair. It'd be a real simple, you know, a sixth grader could understand it. Real simple.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when we were kids and they taught us to go play with other kids, be nice, don't steal, don't threaten. I hate to say it that way, but it is that simple.
It
It's
is.
just deprogramming them. I mean, what's in their head. It's so. I think of that Chevy Chase with the ball of Christmas lights, all tangled together. I'm like, that's the mind of these cops and their supporters. They're just all wrapped around. You got to do this. You got to do that. It'll be chaos. It'll be anarchy. The cops have to keep everyone threatened and and it's ridiculous. You don't have to threaten peaceful people to protect peaceful people. If you do, then show me exactly how that's done. I want to see the results, right? I mean, all you're doing is keeping people living in fear. More peaceful people are being beat up, locked up in prison. And I can't stop saying it, but every day I wake up and it kills me that all these peaceful people are in prison right now. I so badly want to go to a prison and start talking the guards into letting them out. Everyone says, oh, you're crazy. They'll never let them out. Say, I don't care. I got to try, right? Let's see what I come up with. If I don't succeed the first time, maybe the next prison I go to, I succeed with one or two. And then they just keep going until I can start getting some momentum going to where people, maybe if I need to get 50,000 people to show up at the prison, maybe that'll work. But it just disgusts me that these people are sitting in there, their friends and family are suffering, everyone's suffering. Why? Because they disobeyed some damn politician? Who gives a crap what these politicians say? Most of the cops I've talked to hate politicians, right? So why would you violently punish peaceful people over the politician's opinions? It just doesn't make any sense. How this is going to look, I don't know. All I want is a chance to flip a whole town would be nice, a whole sheriff's department. And if we can and there's 3,000 sheriffs. You tell me we can't get one to go peaceful and at least give it a try? Out of over 3,000, can't get one peaceful sheriff to say, okay, that's it. If you harm nobody, no harm will come to you. We won't even threaten anybody if there's no evidence that they've done any harm, right? I don't want accusations that they're harm people. I want to see evidence, proof. I want to see an injured party like they're supposed to in court. It says right there in the paperwork, injured party. What do they put? State of Florida or the state of California. They act like we injured their state by disobeying their politicians that we never consented to obey in the first place. And just about every cop I've talked to agrees and understands these things. They've just never heard it before. That's why we got to get the word out there.
Right. Well, one of the great things of your approach is the peaceful resolution, the commitment to the peaceful resolution.
Yeah.
So when you talk a little bit about that and how you go about it, is that in the first part of the stop, or what do you do to acquire that commitment to a peaceful resolution with the cops?
Well, I do my introduction and they usually ask some questions and somewhere in there, depending on where it goes, right at the beginning, within the first couple minutes, and I say to them, I say, listen, can I count on you to work with me toward a peaceful resolution? And I put my hand out to shake their hand. And they usually reach out and shake it and agree. And hard to go back on that. You
Mhm.
know, once they've done that, then we can talk about anything. Then they're leaving me alone. Then they walk away and let me drive away with no license, no tag, no insurance, limo tinted windows, you know. And yeah, I've even had other cops that were there from the first cop letting me leave, and the other cops going, "What, are you crazy? He's got no tag, he's got no license." And the cops like, "Don't worry about it," because
Right.
they appreciate it, because they feel enlightened and more in control now that they're judging things based on their moral principles instead of the confusing world of legal jumbo bullshit legalese, all open to interpretation and arguing. And there's just no arguing this. The only thing you can do is admit you're an evil asshole. And now I have, video evidence of you choosing evil when you had a peaceful option right in front of you. I'm sorry, am I running off again? Go ahead.
No, this is it, my friends. We have to talk about peace. We got to talk about morality. And Robert brings up great points, right? I have a friend whose father is in prison for having $20 worth of illegal substance, didn't harm anybody. He's been in there for, like I said, serving 20 years. And it's like, how many guys are in there? Well, I think is there 5 million prisoners in the prison and prison industrial complex. And I saw the numbers. I think it was 60% are in there for non-violent offenses. So these prisoners are there for the commercial benefit, usually I would say, of the judges and of course the private prison owners, which saw, hey, if we can get the state to pay for our $50,000 per year customer, kidnap victim, that's a great business to be in. So there are people out there who have no moral compass terms of what do you do to, how do you know what's right or wrong? And they don't care. They maybe don't have any spiritual beliefs. They don't believe in the connectedness of humanity and seeing each other as a brother and a sister. This doesn't mean you have to help the world and save the world, but at least help somebody around you that you can. And that starts with having the conversation. So I like that, getting a commitment to a peaceful resolution. How about talking about always giving them an out? Because I've noticed too in my encounters with cops, sometimes I don't do that. I don't say, there's another way other than this. And I'm just going to mute you for a second. So I've noticed that I can't find sometimes a way to give them an out. So, what is your approach to giving them an out? And is there one approach or many approaches? And I'm going to unmute you if you got that on your side there. If you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I just had to grab something to drink. I'm back. I'm listening to everything you said. And that was the question again. Now this threw me off.
Yeah, this was standing your ground. It was one of them, but the other one was giving them an out. Always giving them an out. So how do you talk with the cops?
Oh, well, the out is the peaceful resolution, right? Like, no matter how you phrase this, like if you're trying to make a point and you're pushing a little, right? Like they feel it, right?
You're
they
standing
feel
your ground. You're standing up for yourself and you're pushing back verbally.
Yeah, but you want to follow that up with, wouldn't you feel better doing this? Would you feel better choosing this? How would it make you feel if you chose the other one? And I'll go over these like through training and stuff. There's all different ways of doing it. But you always want to say, hey, how about get on board and living your life peaceful, basically is what you're saying. But you're giving them that option. That's the out, right? So you're not pushing them to, like, let's say you're arguing the law, right? And you're like, oh, well, the law doesn't say that, or that goes against the Constitution. Okay. So they usually don't follow that up with, hey, why don't you do this? Wouldn't that make you feel better? That's their out. Okay. Instead of just locking horns and arguing, and then them just fabricating stuff anyway to get out of it and just locking you up anyway. They don't care, right? And if you put these questions to them, there's a good chance that they'll want to answer because they're curious. And then they'll feel better once they've come up with the answers that make them feel good. And then all of a sudden you've got an advocate for being peaceful. So don't, what I'm saying is don't box them in, don't corner them, always offer them the peaceful resolution. Just keep reminding them that it's on the table. Here it is, you know? And if they don't want to take it, if they keep saying law this, law that, say, I'd even just break down and say it and say, look, you know, I'm sitting here giving you a peaceful option and you keep referring to the law and you keep wanting to use that as an excuse to threaten and harm me and control me. And I'm just wondering, how would you morally justify that if you had to say that, give your answer to a jury? You know, if I put you in the witness stand and I asked you how you can morally justify choosing the law over peaceful resolution, what would you say? And you've seen the Joe Lopez video, right? You see how they squirm and they're like getting uncomfortable and laugh and freak out. But ultimately, they have to admit that they can't morally justify it. Now, they could just say, and it doesn't matter that I can't morally justify it. You're going to do what I tell you. And say, okay, well, just please do me a favor and clarify what you'll do, what you're willing to do to a peaceful person to get them to obey you like a slave. I mean, are you going to bust my face? You going to shoot me with a taser? You're going to shoot me with your gun? How bloody are you willing to beat a peaceful person to prove your point? I mean, I'll start getting, you know, a little rough with them if they're going to be rough. But ultimately, I need that clarification of violence before I obey. That way, later on, and in the video documented, I can say, look, I gave him a peaceful option. He threatened me with violence. He used the law as an excuse. This man has no soul. He doesn't care. He's evil. How do you not explain, or how can you morally justify him choosing this? You know, especially if it's on video, they can't even argue it. You say, look, here, I gave you the option. You chose evil. Why? Why would you do that? I mean, it doesn't matter what's illegal. I mean, you can punish. Look, there's so many things that are illegal that if the cops enforced every single law, every single person would be in jail, including all the cops. You know, it's absolutely asinine to think that they're just going to arbitrarily pick these laws that are going to keep us safe while they're out there generating revenue and locking up peaceful people for disobedience. And that's the other thing is talking about nonviolent offenders. Think about that for a minute. Nonviolent offender. What do you do? What if you walked around and somebody didn't obey what you told them and said, look, I'm going to label you a nonviolent offender. You're going to have to get locked up. I'm going to have to chain you up, cage you, put you in my basement. You know, I mean, it's absolute insanity. Nonviolent offenders. They're nonviolent, leave them alone. Quit calling them offenders. I don't care if you're offended if I disobey your rules. Nobody will obey me. I'm not offended. Get over it.
Right. So this is where we go to the definition of a crime is you have to, I'm learning this with the common law. There's tort, which is damaging person or property. There's a trespass, going on someone's property without permission. Breach of the peace, which is yelling fire in a crowded theater when there is no fire. That's an example. And then the fourth one is to break contract, is contract law. So these are actual ones. These are actual ones which where there is a victim, right? You break a contract, you trespass, you breach the peace, you have a torturous violation. This is actually a situation, an offense with a victim. So speeding, traffic mostly, these other fallacious claims of crime are not, because there is no victim. And the state cannot be a victim because it is a corporate entity. So even when you ask these guys these questions, who is the victim? They don't know. They say the state, they say the government, the society. So who exactly did I hurt? And Robert always says, you know, whose knee did I hurt? Or whose eye did I blacken? I'm happy to pay you some money right now if I caused any harm. So I think that's a significant point to understand. You have to cause harm to property or person for you to be considered a criminal. So they're using word magic when they call somebody a non violent offender, and the prisons are full of them, my friends. So it's time that us together in unity with the spirit of humanity and love and truth and dignity and justice, we take some responsibility to speak. We're not saying to go break these people out of jail, although Ross Ulbricht and some of these other guys, Schaefer Cox, and others seem to be innocent of any type of crime. So they probably deserve that. Hopefully somebody flies in there with a helicopter one day and breaks them out like it's a Hollywood movie. But with 50,000 people, maybe that would happen. Understand that we're not outnumbered by the criminals. We're just out organized. And so first we got to organize our language, we got to organize our thoughts, and then we can organize our actions. And that's what this summer is going to be about. We are in spring, summer is around the corner. They're going to try to force a vaccine certificate on you. Do you have any approach to that conversation, Robert, about vaccines? I know that's a kind of a tangent there, but any thoughts with when somebody tries to force a certificate upon you, or the actual poisonous toxic injection itself?
Well, I mean, like what is if I try to travel somewhere and then they say you got to have your papers?
Yeah,
Is that
right,
what you're
exactly. So
talking
let's say you're
about?
going through a checkpoint and they say, hey, in order to get through this checkpoint, you have to have this vaccine certificate. Where is it for everybody in the car?
Are you threatening to kill me? Are you threatening to kill me? I'm just wondering.
Right.
Well, answer. Are you threatening to kill
No,
me, Ossifer?
no, sir. I'm just doing my job here.
Oh,
Of
great.
course,
Well, have a good day. Thank you. Take care.
and drive through it.
Well, I mean, look, I've even seen people do that, right? Where they just repeat whatever the border guy or whoever the checkpoint guy says until he just like go ahead. He just gets tired of it, right? And that's a win, but you're not winning them over, right? You're not, and there's going to be difference. You want to either just get them to leave you alone, or you want to spend some time and really win them over and get them on board. Which I try to do with all of them. But hey, if they just leave and leave me alone, it's good enough for me.
Right. So winning them over, in your definition, is to help them see the moral principles which are at play or not, and in conversation, versus giving up because of frustration. Now they let you go, which is still a win, but it's not a win over. Whereas you want them to help them realize it's not okay to use violence against a peaceful person. Is that correct?
Yeah, because once they get that lined up in themselves, and then their lives become more peaceful. They see everything. It's real simple now. Now it's black and white. No harm done, do no harm. How easy is that? Or do you want to memorize a pamphlet this big and all these laws, a handful of laws? They don't even know all the laws. They only know the few they need to keep the money coming in, you know? And I think a lot of them don't realize that they're just generating revenue. I think a lot of them they're just ignorant. They only know what they're trained to know. And they're trained to, you know, pull over people for lights out tags and stuff like that. It's just ridiculous. They could be doing so much better with their lives. Hey, and since they're only bothering, or they're not bothering peaceful people, they're only going to go after violent people. They'll have a lot more time on their hands instead of sitting in parking lots watching the game or whatever next to each other. They could be knocking on doors, generating revenue voluntarily. They could go to businesses and say, hey, we need money for the police here so we can protect you from violent people. And better yet, we don't mess with peaceful people. I think they'll raise more money. I think they'll make more money. I think they'll have more free time, right? I mean, think about it. If they're not bothering peaceful people, they're going to have so much time on their hand. They could be out there talking to people, which is going to bring in a new kind of cop, right? The real brutal, evil ones aren't going to survive in that kind of system, right? They're the good guys will push them out, hopefully. I mean, we'll see. We're just going to have to give it a try and see what happens.
Right. Yeah, this is going to be a great year. So the winter has closed, the dark winter, and now we're on bright spring and summer. And we now have a chance to talk with cops. And many of us are in the Northern California area. Maybe some of us are not. watching this live or afterwards, but it's time to have a conversation, and you can use some of these techniques, and we'll put together some type of cheat sheet or guide, some type of blueprint, like a flow chart perhaps, where people can follow along, because we really got to activate ourselves, and we don't have to win everybody. Maybe the sheriff, maybe the chief of police, maybe a few lieutenants, somebody in that community is a moral person and they have a uniform and a badge, and it doesn't give them any more rights. In fact, sworn officers of the law have duties and obligations. But in this conversation, we're not even talking about the law. We're talking about morality. We're talking about what is right and wrong. How do you, a human, justify it using violence against me, a peaceful man or woman? And I think some of the women out there, you guys have an advantage because you are less of a threat, I would say, to men. I've seen cops be aggressive towards guys and not so much towards women. What's your thoughts on that, Rob? Does it matter what gender it is or size or anything like this? It's all about the tonality and the intention and the language itself.
Well, I mean, that all depends on who you're running into, right? I mean, if he's a racist, wife beating, alcoholic, drug abusing, all the problems these cops have with their job because they commit such evil crimes. I mean, they got to drink, right? You got to be able to function. So, like, what is it? 40% of them beat their wives and kids, or something like that. Some study. That's crazy. You could run into a complete evil asshole and not stand a chance. But the majority of the ones I've talked to were not so bad. They gave me hope. I mean, I thought it was worthless, but I won over so many of them that I know there's something there. And the thing is that, like I said, we got to get it on video, and we got to get one to be an advocate. Hopefully a sheriff, but if it's just a deputy or a cop or something like that, that's fine. Prosecutor would be nice, a judge. And you can try this on all of them. You can just call up, make some phone calls, and get your feet wet, see what it's like, asking them to morally justify it. You've really got to win one over to understand this. You do. You got to do it yourself, man. I can't even tell you what it's like. It's too hard to explain.
All right. Well, let's Katrina might want to add something here. Let's see,
Yeah,
Katrina.
I wanted to add something to that. I do believe like every cop is different regarding the whole. There's always that stereotype, like, oh, he's a man, he's going to be intimidated by that man. But believe it or not, there are some cops that have a big issue with like maybe a woman because it reminds them of their wife that divorced them and got most of their pension, and want to take their anger out on that woman and sees that person as a threat too. In my experience, actually, like there's this one cop in particular that has a lot of complaints about him by small size females. So I think it's so weird how everyone keeps saying, oh, it's a big man, so they must be intimidated. I mean, obviously fighting a big man is difficult. And so there are times where, they could see that intimidating, but there's also these types of cops that have a issue with females and small size females and want to beat them up and want to come up with stuff on them too. Believe it or not.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah. Especially if you run into a cop that just finished raping a hooker, I mean, they're horrible what they do to people. And there's been entire police departments that have been shut down because the cops were so evil to the people. Hold on, I got some kids over here playing. Hold on, I'm on the road here, so let me roll the window up. Yeah, you never know what you're gonna get, right? So you got to be careful when you're doing this. You don't know how evil they are. But here's the thing, though, is you're also offering the evil cops an opportunity to turn over a new leaf. You're just, I mean, I've even said it to them. I say, look, if you could just, take a look at this the right way, man, it'll make your life better. I feel like a preacher sometimes.
It is. We're preaching goodness, and it doesn't have to be religious because this is not what it is. We don't need certain religious texts to determine It's not okay to steal. It's not okay to kill. These are facts. This is what you call moral objectives or moral objectivity. No matter what some politicians do, it's not okay to kill peaceful people. It's not okay to steal people's money. And it seems like this is the understanding and the belief we're trying to instill on these officers, that it doesn't matter what they do in Sacramento, in DC. We're talking about you and I out here on the road. I stopped because you put lights on, and I'm afraid for my life. I understand, what's going on in the world, and I stopped because I want to have a conversation with you, and I want to ask you, how do you morally justify using violence against me, a peaceful man? And that seems to be the main phrase that you use, Robert. Is there any other phrases that you use?
Yeah, I use all kinds. I mean, it's just hundreds of them. It all depends on where the conversation's going, how they're responding. And you got to think on your feet. You got to have 20 or 30 different replies ready, and you don't have to have 20 or 30. I mean, you start out with one or two and then get your feet wet, and then you'll start coming up with more replies. But it all depends on the situation, the one you're talking to. I mean, if I'm trying to pull him up on moral high ground. He's trying to pull me down into that cesspool of legal and procedural bullshit. And I know that if I don't get him up there, that I'll be actually doing him a disservice, and it's great because if it is a bad guy, if it's a guy who's done a lot of things, I've said to them a few times, I say, look, it doesn't matter what you've done. What matters is what you're going to do. That's going to define your character, right? What are you going to do with this information now? Are you going to continue to be a slave and threaten peaceful people, to force them to be slaves? Or do you want to break that and start being a good person that you can, and doing things that you can always morally justify and feeling better about yourself? Which one would make you feel better? I've done all kinds of conversations. The thing is, you got to understand those 30 points. You got to do some role playing and practice. And then once you see it, I'm telling you, you're going to start laughing. Everybody who gets through the 30 points just cracks up, because some people said it's like the, moral force. I was going to call it the moral force, like the force in Star Wars, where Obi-Wan Kenobi was like, these aren't the droids you're looking for, right? Because it just kind of works like that. 5 minutes later, you got a guy who was going to give you a ticket or lock you up, who's now thanking you, shaking your hand, and letting you drive away without a tag. It's magical, man. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's got to feel like winning the lottery, I would say, man.
Every time, man. It's just great. I hope we can win them over, man, because really it's desperate times right now. This is crazy. If people were out there at least putting the option on the table, the peaceful option, and getting them to morally justify their decision and getting them to commit to a peaceful resolution. If we can get those three things and get people out there started doing it, I'm telling you, you'll come up with all kinds of stuff to talk to, but you got to get them to commit to a peaceful resolution first, because any conversation after that is voluntary, right? It's the threat of violence is gone. But if you don't get that, then there's always that threat of violence out there. And who the hell can defend themselves when they're like I did in court? The judge was like, or the judge always asks people, right? Before you sign a guilty plea, has anybody threatened you, put you under duress, or coerced you? And I was like, yeah, you, the prosecutor, the guys with the guns here, like almost everybody in this room. It's nothing but threats of violence, duress, and coercion. I'm having a nervous breakdown here because you people can't morally justify threatening peaceful people with violence, but yet you keep doing it.
Yes, that's great. I love that. So yeah, a little takeaway right there. Takeaway: if somebody asks, if these government people ask, is anybody forced you, coerce you, or threatened you? You can say yes. All of you have. My gosh. All right, Katrina, we'll turn it over to you. What you got there, friend?
Oh, I was just going to say, the cops are being a little bit more nicer now because they know that people are really considering options of defunding them and having another force come in. And so they kind of have no choice right now but to be a little bit more nice. But they're also, you know, someone brought to my attention yesterday that she thinks that cops are salesmen. And especially now during these times, you know, they have meetings. I mean, my city is way different than other cities. I mean, every state with police is different than every, you know, other states, you know. In South Carolina, where I was at, they, you know, when I'm turn on the news and the sheriff will say, oh, this kidnapper is loose. If you see him, get your rifle out. But in California, they don't want us to have our rifles or protect ourselves. They want us to depend on them. And, you know, in my town, they easily make $400,000 a year.
The cops or the sheriffs?
The cops. And the sheriffs probably more. I mean, no, not sheriffs. Sheriffs maybe not. The cops. And I'm just, you know, they kind of, it's interesting because you go to these meetings and they're so professional, but these aren't the ones that I deal with whenever I've had a dangerous encounter. I've dealt with the unprofessional street cops. I haven't dealt with the sergeants that are in meetings with the mayor and the, you know, the board that they have to deal with in Berkeley that they don't have to deal with in other cities. They're very concerned about a second force coming in, you know, and this second force will probably get paid less for one, because it's not a union. And obviously their union has caused them to make $400,000 a year. Some doctors don't make that. They're very concerned, and they're really trying to stop the second force from happening, like what we talked about before. But one thing I was going to say is that, you know, it's so hard to win over the cops in my town in particular, because there's so much resistance towards them. Everybody hates them. Now, I've talked to sergeants and they're very wonderful people. I just think that they're saints, like the most nicest people I've ever seen in my life. But then sometimes that makes me wonder, oh, are they salespeople? Because why are the sergeants that go to the meetings in my town the only ones that are professional? And I just don't get that. And you know, I don't trust the cops. I don't think the ones I have encountered could win them over. But you know, there's other options like talking to a sergeant if that cop is bad too, or even if he charges you with something, you could actually talk to the sergeant and they could call the DA up and cancel it as well. And that's happened to me, by the way.
What has happened to you?
So I was charged with a crime I didn't commit. I think I told you this 2 weeks ago too, the whole situation. I don't know if you remember that.
No, but we're doing a recording. So yeah, for the people watching at home, you want to, you know, share what this is, or shall we get back to, because what happens is we want to take advantage of this time that understand that government's illegitimate. We have not consented to any of their dictates and edicts. And even if they were constitutional, that would be a huge victory. If they would just obey their oaths, that would be monumental. But we saw the Bill of Rights was supposed to put chains on the government, and it's failed. So now we can't even talk to them about the law because the law is now immoral. Remember, there used to be laws that said white people drink out of this drinking fountain and black people over here, and black schools are white schools. And there was the Fugitive Slave Act where the police would actually take the slave back to the slave owner. So this is where we are again. People don't know what is right and what is wrong. And so I think it's great that you find the officers or the sergeants to be saints. That's not been my experience. I've had sergeants grab my phone, kidnap me, mock me while I'm sitting in back of a police car. So as Robert stated, it's case by case. You don't know if this guy's going to be a saint, if he's going to be a devil, And I think to prepare is to understand that they have been trained immorally to violate us, and they try to justify it legally. But in this approach, in this solution-focused conversation, we are focused on talking about the morality, talking about the right and wrongness of what they're doing. Robert, is there any other ways that, you know, people can understand, like from the cops perspective. um
Look,
yeah, I mean, just in general, like from the cops, they've been trained this way. You know, they're actually dumbed down to not even care about natural law or human rights. But you know, that's the main concern. And you know, I spoke to a law friend today. You know, we talked about, oh, the cop comes up, and if you stay silent, that's acquiescence, right? Because in law, silence is called tacit agreement, and you agree. So the next time I get pulled over by a cop, I have a document which states, hey, I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. Here's the situation. If you have evidence that I've committed a crime or suspect me of committing a crime, I will happily identify myself. If not, please tell me
look,
if I'm being detained. Go ahead.
if you don't support the cops, then you're against them. You're the enemy. All
Yeah,
right.
that's what my
So
town is about. It's, you know, obviously my town is all about hating the cops. So,
yeah, like a cop, if you don't start like licking boots right away, then you're the enemy and they're gonna just treat you worse. Okay. What I'm trying to do is help them. I'm trying to get them to realize they could be a better person, and I'm rooting for them. Right. So I'm not arguing that they're wrong. I'm just getting them to understand that they've been wrong and they can change it, that they could be a better person, right? So I'm trying to help them, right? I'm not trying to show them that they're wrong or that the Constitution this or that or any of that other garbage, all the ink on paper that means absolutely nothing, that's used mostly by evil criminal minds to control and punish and tax. I mean, I wouldn't put any faith in any of that. I never bring up that they're violating the Constitution because they don't care about the Constitution. They don't even know what it is. All they care about is getting that paycheck and bullying people all day long. And they're just so used to it that a lot of them just don't realize that what they're doing. You know, a lot of cops do know what's going on. I've talked to a couple of the older guys and they understand. They're like the kids today that are cops. They don't like it because he says this one guy is 48 years older, something like that back then when I was talking to him like 4 years ago, and he was looking forward to retirement. And after talking to me for almost an hour, he said he was going to take early retirement, and that a lot of them are disgusted, right? I mean, they're letting the evil people get in, and they're drawing them in because they get away with such evil, right? Like the cops go down the road scaring and terrorizing people, and there's some kids out there going, hey, I want to do that when I grow up. You know, I want to be the bully. I want to be the asshole, right? So it's just, the whole thing is a mess.
can I ask you guys a question? This is something I still don't understand, even though um, I'm somewhat involved in politics because I am somewhat one of those now. Um, but who's in charge of the cops? Because the mayor that I talked to keeps claiming he's not in charge of them. Because a lot of people, so when cops behave a certain way, this is a new term too. I never have ever heard anyone saying until like the whole Berkeley stand down order, because everyone assumed that the mayor gave a stand down order, which he probably did, that now it's a new term that the mayor has these cops doing this. It just all of a sudden became a new term that they're doing this to please the city council members. It's not their fault. They're really good people, is the term I keep hearing. And I still can't figure out who's even in charge of the cops, because the mayor and the city council members claim that they're not. And even in my town, city council members have gotten into it with cops too and been arrested. So,
Well,
and
why do you think someone
the police aren't
controls
afraid
them?
of the police aren't afraid of the city council members. They'll arrest them any day, you know? So I'm just wondering who's in charge of them, because it's
That's
something
what
that,
I'm asking you, is why do you think someone's in charge of them?
well, because it's been a new talk about, okay, we elect a sheriff, right? But we don't elect the chief, and the chief works for the mayor, but now the mayor is insisting in all these meetings that he's not in charge of the cops.
Look,
Everyone keeps,
none of those guys are sitting around the table or at the bar with the cops. The cops aren't controlled by anybody. They're a violent gang that gets away with horrid crimes and they high five each other. There's nobody that is tougher or more scarier than the damn police. They can make you disappear. There's nobody in charge of them. They're the guys with the guns. They're the guys that could kill you, put a pencil in your hand, and claim you tried to kill them. And they can make you disappear and nobody would even know where you went. They're worse than the mafia. There's nobody controlling them. They control
Is
themselves.
it
I hung out with
possible?
cops.
It's hard
I
for
hung
me to
out
know
with
that. Is it possible for the mayor, because they did vote on getting rid of half of them, is it possible that the mayor actually is in control of them?
Well, I mean, what kind of control are you talking about? Because I mean, every police department is a gang of armed thugs with delusions of
Well, because
authority that are enjoying this shit.
there's these policies and that we think are stupid, and then everyone, and it's been talked about all day on nextdoor.com. Oh, don't blame the police, it's the mayor. And then I got into an argument with my friends saying I think these cops are evil, and then they say no, it's the mayor, it's the city council members that's making them do this. There's these silly little policies that are, there's always these new laws that keep popping up in cities, you know. And
let me interject here, because I have heard the city manager is in charge of the cops in other cities, but I think these are dead ends, Katrina, because ultimately it's individuals, and we have to remember that every individual is responsible for their own actions. So if a cop kills somebody on camera who didn't have a gun and wasn't a threat, it's the cop's fault. If the mayor says, yes, you can go out and kill people, or the city manager says, go out and do these harmful things with no liability, then they're contributing to that. But we're trying to evolve from a statist paradigm of life, which is the state's in control. They take care of my children. They take care of my retirement. They take care of the roads. They take care of all these things because they're almighty. And we're starting to see these are some of the lowest people. Now, my mother was a public school teacher. My dad was in Parks and Recreation for most of his career. So there's good, loving people in these statist institutions. However, these
like
people,
myself,
the
by the way.
teachers, yeah, yourself, exactly. So there's people who are nice. And like I said, my mother, she's the most loving woman I know on the planet. She was a public school teacher. Well, now she's in her 70s and she's able to see that the school system is a mind control operation, and it's unethical and it's immoral. So she knows that now. So this is what we're trying to do with Robert here and these folks watching and interacting with us. And later in the comments, we have to help humanity evolve, which is just because you have a tin badge doesn't give you the right to use violence against peaceful people. If you're the mayor, the president, the governor, you can't use threats, violence, intimidation, and coercion against anybody. And so here's an opportunity and a challenge I would extend to you, Katrina. In your next meeting, bring up the fact that these mayor, police officers, city council, board of supervisors, they are using violence or intimidation, coercion against peaceful people. And I know that's difficult. You have a good job, you stated, but somebody has to speak truth. And if we're chasing money, hey, understand that it's nice to have money. It's nice to have a nice house, a nice car, and have food on the table, but we can get that in jail, right? We can have these things in jail. Go ahead, Robert.
Well, nobody has control of these guys. I've hung out with these guys. I lived with one. All right. These guys, they're basically free, right? They have true freedom. They're truly sovereign. They answer to nobody. There's nobody I don't care who you get. If you get somebody says, I'm going to control the police, they ain't going to control the police. The police do whatever they want. They do whatever they can get away with. Every time they come up with new laws, it's just more excuses for them to violently victimize peaceful people. They get off on that. They're in a frenzy. You can't, no one's controlling them. They have the guns, right? There's no city council that can tell the cops to do anything. All they can do is tell them to lock up more people. That's about it. But reeling them back, come on. What happened after Rodney King? They didn't reel back. They got worse. and they kept getting worse. And then 9/11, they got worse. And every chance they get, they're going to get worse. The only thing we can do that I see is try to win them over like I've done and do it on a mass scale. Get hundreds, maybe thousands of people out there winning these guys over. And I want to flip a whole town. I want to get a sheriff, get all the deputies, get them all peaceful. Nobody has to pay taxes, get a license, get a tag. They can still do it if they want to, but no harm will come to anyone who disobeys. The disobedient and peaceful will be left alone in that entire town. And then other towns can emulate it, because I'm telling you, people are going to love it. I think the cops will love it the most, because then
Right.
competition comes up, right? And now a cop's got a better offer with another company that's more peaceful than the one he's working for.
Right. And that's what
So
we
now you don't
saw.
just call 911, you can call all kinds of numbers and get all kinds of peaceful cops to show up to resolve stuff peacefully, right?
And the cops are very much afraid of that right now in cities in California. They're afraid of this second power coming in, because once again, I don't think that these private companies are going to pay these people $400,000 to work.
Well, I think they'll make more being peaceful. I think business owners would donate. Let's say a business owner is being robbed $10,000 a year for taxes, but now he lives in a peaceful town where the sheriff will protect him from the violent politicians, and he doesn't have to pay the $10,000 anymore. I think he'd be willing to pay at least $2,000, okay, just to have a police, just to be able to call someone with guns to show up and go after the people who are robbing them or threatening them. And I think he'll pay to have the neighborhood, the business owners will pay to have the neighborhood police, because they want their customers to be safe. They want people to be able to call men with guns in case they can't defend themselves. But what we don't need are cops patrolling, robbing everybody, and most of that money's going to the politicians and stuff. Yeah, some of them make 400,000 a year, but on average, what do they make? 100 grand, maybe 70, whatever. Around here, that's about what they make. But I think they'll make double that if they did it on a voluntary basis. That's all. I mean, shit, look, I put myself in their shoes. If I was a cop and I went peaceful, I was a sheriff, right? I would go door to door with my deputies in all the businesses and tell them that we're peaceful police now. And you don't have to pay taxes. And you don't have to we're not going to, as long as you do no harm, we're not going to harm you. And it's going to be peaceful from now on. And I'll protect you even from the IRS, right? Donate 2,000, donate 1,000. I think they'll be millionaires, actually, to tell you the truth. I'd go door to door until I had a big fat bank account, and then I would protect everybody in the neighborhoods. All my deputies would be out there protecting peaceful people, especially from the politicians.
Yep. And this is what happened with the Threat Management Center in Detroit, Michigan. He started 20 years ago. You can take a look at his story. He started with him, his dog, and a rifle. And that's how he began. So take a look at his origin stories. But it's not going to be from somebody out there, in my opinion. It's going to be coming from the man in the mirror, the woman in the mirror, so that we take responsibility. So in my little community right here, this complex area, so we could go around door to door and say, hey, instead of calling cops, let's call each other, right? This is a concept like a Liberty Cell or a Freedom Group, or these other ideas which are being birthed, which is we don't need a monopoly organization based on coercion with no liability to protect us, because that's not what they are doing. They are security officers for the city, the county, the state, whatever jurisdiction that they're in. And so we're dealing with this down in Carmel, California, Capitola, San Jose, Santa Cruz. What do? The state park rangers, when they violate your rights on video, who do you go to keep them accountable? And this is the challenge that we're seeing, right? I guess you have to do something really heinous to be considered a crime, even though you're supposed to have higher morals and responsibilities with that badge and that uniform. And the question is, how do you find justice? And we don't want to promote any violence. So what do? We're talking about lawsuits, liens on their assets, ostracization, anything which is not going to stir up violence. However, with bullies at school, How do you deal with a bully? Do you beg and plead, or do you punch him in the face? I mean, this is one of the questions, right? So what do you do when slavery is happening in front of you openly, daylight? My friends, to wear a mask, to go into a store and to be berated against that, and for the cops not even to know the difference between an order and a law. Slavery isn't coming, my friends. It is here in open daylight in California, in Florida, in New York, in Pennsylvania. It is open now. And so this is why we're having a solution focused conversation is what do? We have to be able to ask them, how do you justify using violence and coercion and intimidation against a peaceful guy like me or Robert or Katrina or any of these nice people on the call or watching this video? You are peaceful. 95, 98% of the society is peaceful. So why are they extorting and stealing our wealth, stealing our life force? Because we didn't know either. I went to college. Nobody told me about a moral compass or moral code, but we learned as a child, as Robert stated, don't hit people and don't steal their stuff. Is that right, Robert?
Absolutely. And just go back to the basics, just, try to enjoy life. It's short. We're not here that long. Don't you want to live in peace and be happy? Or do you want to be a brutal dictating bastard? I mean, what kind of lifestyle do you want to lead? And I'll tell you, this is better for the cops. The cops live better lives. They feel better about themselves. They're more in control. They're in control, right? And if you think of it this way, you learn how to do this, and you can do this with IRS agents and I talked to an IRS agent for over an hour, and she just never heard from her again. I think she quit her job. And because there's just no getting out of this. If you have any kind of goodness in you at all, then grab onto that and go with that, right? I mean, it's more enjoyable for everyone. You live more peaceful life. How can you turn that down? And the fact that I'm trying to help them, it's really hard to be nasty to somebody who's honestly trying to help you. Okay, it's really hard for them to start throwing orders and trick me up and treat me like shit, because I'm really reaching out to them and trying to connect and trying to get them to live a better life for themselves. And they feel that, right? So that's how I get into these conversations with them, because I really mean it. I'm not faking it. I'm not standing on, I know more than you know. I'm not telling them what to believe. I'm not even telling them they're wrong. I'm just asking them to morally justify their behavior. How easy is that? I can morally justify everything I do. They should too. You can't just say, well, it's my job. It's your job to violate your own moral principles. Well, that's a shitty job. Quit. I used to make them quit. I used to get the first 4 or 5 I talked to said they were going to quit. Whether they did or not, I don't know. I wish I would have got followed up. I probably still could if I go through records. But then somebody said, well, if they quit, then the younger, more evil guy might replace them. And I'm like, okay, well, what do I like about them? Well, it's nice that people who don't have guns and can't protect themselves, they can call somebody. They go after rapists and murderers and, child molesters and stuff like that. So I started telling the cops, I'm with you, buddy. I'm on your side. And I'm get my guns. I'll run with you and I'll chase them guys down. But when you start threatening peaceful people with violence, I can't morally justify it. Can you? Telling you, they love it. They absolutely love it. We got to get more of them on board. We
Yeah,
got to hurry too.
yeah, and I said that too to the cop, and I felt good telling him that too. Like this is one of the points is finding commonality, which is, hey man, I know you have a difficult job. I would not want your job. If somebody calls and you're going to go chase down a murderer, a bank robber, a rapist, some legitimate criminal or suspected criminal, I don't want that job. So that's a great point to find out what we do like and give genuine compliments to these guys. These guys aren't the enemies. They are being trained by the enemies. And that is the politicians and these guys who do know that statism is a cult. It's a methodology of control. And just like you said earlier, that these cops are the real sovereign citizens because the law doesn't apply to them. They're not found guilty by their own laws. And this was the problem with the king in the Magna Carta, in the 1200, where the king had laws, but he was not subject to his own laws. So maybe the future is about agreements, about consent, about actual written down between me and Robert, or me and Katrina, or Julia, and we say, hey, I promise to not use violence against you. Do you promise not to use violence against me? Yes, let's make an agreement, and we'll sign it. And if somebody violates that agreement, then they're bound to whatever, financial amount that they have determined, and, et cetera. This is a concept I got from Anna Pashanta, and other folks in the Voluntary Village Creators Group that we have, on Facebook, to learn. I think the future is about a voluntary community, an intentional community, a village, a town. And I like your aim here, Robert, which is let's flip a town. And I think I might have one in my mind, but we'll talk about that offline. But we do want to find the things we like about the cops. And generally, it's not a fun job. I would not want a target on me where these criminals, because there are criminals who are going to do violence against these guys. And, we're not going to use violence against peaceful people. But what do you do if they start requiring a vaccine certificate to travel on a public road that was paid for by the gas taxes and the gas that you bought? You got to stand up and say something. In Nazi Germany, when these Jews are being killed, or whoever, Black people or Mexicans or whatever, whoever's being blamed, the people that stood silent are almost as culpable as the people committing the acts, because they're watching crimes happen and they're staying afraid. They're staying disempowered when life is to be lived and be free and be joyous and beautiful. So why are we watching our fellow brothers and sisters get brutalized? And it's just a lack of knowledge. I think it's a lack of understanding, a lack of wisdom. So we're trying to extract this from Robert and create this as a community in this conversation. What to say, what's the mindset, what's the intention? And we've gone over some of the great points so far, getting a commitment to a resolution, finding the commonality, and giving them an exit, right? Giving them an out. So it's not, listen to me. How about, Robert, would you talk about having them answer questions rather than you make statements?
Well, yeah, they'll listen to them. They won't listen to me. They don't care what I have to say. When you first meet, they have that delusion of authority, like you're just supposed to obey right away and everything's supposed to go smooth, and you get robbed without a hitch. I know where I was going with that.
No, just asking them questions rather than saying, hey, this
Oh
is
yeah,
what it
well,
is. Ask them questions.
because they say it, right? You ask them a question. I ask you, all right, how can you morally justify, or let's just put the option on the table that you have discretion and that you can choose the peaceful option, right? Which one are you going to choose, right? So now they have to make this, it's up to them. It's on them, right? You're not forcing it on them. You're not telling them to do something. You're just saying it's there. There's a peaceful option sitting right here. Now, what are you going to do? So then they have to choose. I asked them, how can they morally justify it? Then they have to answer the question. So they hear what they're saying and they listen to themselves. I can't tell them anything. They're not going to listen to me. They don't care what I have to say. They don't care what you have to say. I'm sure you've experienced that many times, right, David?
Oh, yeah. No, I've literally asked them, did you swear an oath to the Constitution? Do you know the difference between an oath, a driver and a traveler? And literally, and I have video, and I'm trying to figure out how to edit the video, because I'm gonna make a compilation of all the times in the last year that I got kidnapped. And I was staying pretty calm because I learned from my law mentor. He said, anytime a cop grabs your arm, you just go limp. They want to kidnap you. They want to falsely imprison you. Let them take you away, because that's a $250,000 fine. Somewhere this was written down, and I'm trying to figure out how to find justice for this. But the main thing is that there was a video of a guy jaywalking, a father of two, and he's jaywalking, and there's two cops. You can hear the body cam footage, and one cop's like, yeah, let's go get him, and the other cop's like, nah, let's not make contact. Anyways, they go initiate contact, cited for jaywalking, and try to identify him. He says no. They grab his arm. What does he do as a strong man? He rips away and says, get the fuck off me. Hey, that's a reasonable response to, being restricted. However, he forgot these guys are violent gang members with monopoly control, no liability. Long story short, the cop yells out, he's reaching for my gun. And so the other cop reaches out a gun and kills him, all for jaywalking. So you do want to be aware that this organization, cartel, gangsters there was a good cop and there was a bad cop in the car. The one guy was like, nah, we don't need to make contact. The other one's, yeah, let's make contact. They weren't planning to kill somebody that day, but that guy died, left his kids without a father. So understand the risk and reward, but there's more risk in staying silent.
Well, look at it this way. Would you do that? Would he have done that if they were known hitmen for the mafia? Right? Would you treat them like that? Would you be nasty to that person? Right? How would you react if a known mafia hitman was giving you shit like that?
Right.
Would you try to win him over, or would you tell him to kiss your ass?
Right. No, you would definitely be polite and try to use persuasion because you knew he might just unload some lead into you right then and there.
Yeah, that's what we're dealing with here. These guys could murder you and get away with it. I don't talk to them like that because I know how dangerous they are. Okay. But I'm trying to win them over. I'm doing the best I can. And a few of the evil ones, a handful of them hurt me pretty bad, and it's disgusting what they did to me. And I'm sitting here with peaceful police business cards and I'm getting cops to live more peaceful lives. And then a group of evil cops brutalize me and nearly kill me. And I was going to quit. I wasn't even going to do it anymore. I was so pissed off. They hurt me so bad. It took me months to recover, and I still haven't recovered. I still have, they shackled my feet and cut off the circulation, and now my feet are getting worse. They're so painful. It's horrible what they did to me, but I'm not going to give up. No, too many of these cops have shook my hand and agreed, and I saved their lives. I saved their lives from a lot of suffering and all their future victims too. I saved all those people. I think other people should be out here doing this so they can have this feeling of saving all these people. Once you flip a cop, you're going to realize how many lives you saved, and you're just going to blow up, man. David, you're going to be all over this, man. You're going to be one after another. You're going to be standing up in front of 30, 40 cops, winning them over in groups.
I believe it. I receive it. Thank you, man. I really do. I think, yes, I'm so sick of it too. I saw what happened, of course, the Rodney King stuff, and then Oscar Grant in California, and case after case after case. And then pretty soon you say, what the hell is the solution? And so that's why I flew out to Detroit to meet Dale Brown. And I brought him to my conference in California some years ago. And now I realize, just like many of you, that we are the answer. We are the solution. We are the ones we have been waiting for. And I'm so grateful that, Robert and I got to connect. And who knows, maybe we'll be able to meet in the flesh this year in California as we put together some type of project, some type of initiative to discuss what is happening. I think that analogy of being a known mafia hitman is probably pretty accurate. It's a great approach. And this is also one of your bullet points in the curriculum is preparing for, expecting the best, but preparing for the worst. Do you want to speak a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know how evil the guy is. It's going to take a few sentences to see where he's at, and then a lot more to find out if he's faking, right? A lot of them just lie and fake and pretend and go along with it. So some people have claimed all of them, but I said, no, there's too many that were sincere. I can tell sincerity. I've been in sales for 40 years. I know all about sincerity. And I mean, these guys that are evil, I love giving them an opportunity, right? At least give them an opportunity to turn over that new leaf and live a better life. Anyway, I'm not going to give up. We got to get them, man. I mean, we got to
Right.
do something big.
Yep. Yep.
I'll
And
come
this is,
out there if I have to. Let's do it.
yeah, well, yeah, no pressure for me, but we're gonna take what we're learning here on these videos and these conversations, because this is a worldwide conversation, and victims should not be fighting victims. The politicians are writing things on paper and using money to incentivize and positively reinforce activity or behavior. So the cops, did you know the cops are also afraid of the cops? So when the cop is driving in his plain clothes and there's another cop behind him, he gets the same nervousness and anxiety that we get as well. So how do we overcome that? We overcome that with being a peaceful, loving man, as Robert is, and so am I. And we want to help these. I'm so glad you said that, because when you said I want to go talk to cops versus me, I'll try to avoid the conversation. No, let's have the conversation. Let's speak. I'm willing to be kidnapped. I'm not willing to die, so I'll bow down if you're going to blow my head off. But let's talk about it, because normally I have video cameras in my car. I'll normally be video recording on my phone. So there's some type of documentation, and we can talk about different apps that live stream it and capture the audio and the video and, send it off to the cloud or whatever the solution might be. But I'm with you, Robert. I'm not going to give up either. I think the children deserve it. I got nephews and nieces, and I remember being a kid and looking up the cops. And then one day I got brutalized and intimidated, and I said, "Fuck those guys, man. Those guys are jerks." And what I didn't know the status paradigm at that point. So I just made a generalization about cops. And now we're trying to find the individuality of each human being. They are responsible for their actions, no matter who allows what, no matter anybody gives you approval. So let's talk about clarifying the threats that they are going to use. So you do that really great. And you say, how bloody are you going to beat a peaceful person to prove your point?
Yeah. I mean, if if you're going to threaten me, I need to know the results of the threat. I mean, if you're just going to smack my hand with a ruler, I don't really give a shit. But if you're going to bust my teeth out and I need it clarified, right? I need the evidence. I have cameras going, and I want to prove to everybody that I only obeyed because this guy was willing to kill a peaceful person. I want everyone, his boss and everyone else, to understand that, and especially the jury, when it gets to the jury or gets to the civil jury, where I'm going after everything he owns. So
How
yeah, you
about,
want
yeah, no, clarifying it. Yeah, because you are planning to prepare for the court case, right?
well, you want everything factual, right? And him saying, well, if you don't obey me, then I'm going to have no choice but to arrest you. And it's like, well, wait a minute, what does that mean? You got to explain that to me. Are you telling me that you're willing to put your hands on me, and if I resist, you're willing to bloody me, and if I defend myself, you're willing to kill me? Is that true? Yes, that's true. Okay, well then what do you want me to do now that the threat of violence is out there? Remember, in court, they don't like threats of violence. They don't want you bringing that up, right? So a cop in court can say, oh, well, I warned him that he could be arrested. But what if a cop has to say, well, I warned him that I'd kill him if he didn't obey me? I mean, it's different, right? They'll let the arrest slide by as not even a threat of violence. But if you clarify it, now it's a threat of violence, and you have evidence of that you can use with his boss or with him right there on the spot. So, well, look, now I have evidence that you're evil. I mean, what do you want to do about that? You want to backtrack? I'll give you a second chance. There's a peaceful option on the table. Would you feel better being peaceful with a peaceful person, or would you feel better using violence against a peaceful person? It's a simple choice.
Will you say it like that? So I was going to ask about the option clauses. Would it feel better to use violence on a peaceful person, or say that again? And if somebody wants to do some role play, I think this would be a great time to jump in. If not, I'll do some role play with you. But Say that again, because that's a great close. That's a great option. Can you say it one more time?
What
Which
there's
feels
a
better?
peaceful option on the table, right? You've got two options. You see my hands? I can't see me, so I don't know what you see. So there's two options here. The easy, simple choice, right? You want to use politicians' dictates as an excuse to threaten and harm peaceful people, or would you rather be peaceful with a peaceful person? Which choice would make you feel better? I mean, I can say it 100 different ways. I mean, it's just getting that point across that you want to nudge them into choosing peace, right?
Right.
I mean, yeah, sure, you could bloody me, but now the threat of violence is out there, right? Now, I didn't threaten you with violence, correct? So how do you morally justify threatening me with violence, right? There's no evidence that I've done any harm to anyone, and I never would. I'm a peaceful guy. and I assumed you were a peaceful guy too. So were you going to choose peace, or do you want to choose evil? Which one do you want?
Right.
All right, so you're going to choose evil. So what are you going to do to me? How badly are you going to bloody me? Okay, well, I'm going to drag you out of the car. I'm going to taser you. I'm like, okay, then I'll show you my driver's license. Here, 7 years old, expired, but whatever.
Oh my
So now
gosh.
where do we go from here? Are you going to threaten me again with violence to obey you? You know, because we're making a video here and I want the audience to know. I want the public to know. I want the jury to know. But
Yeah.
I'm always willing to go back and say, hey, how about just taking the peaceful option? You know, you'd enjoy that, wouldn't you? You know, it just depends on who you're dealing with. They're so different. There is no script. All I can do is give you a bunch of good lines that are effective, and then you create your own character talking to these guys. You know, I wish it was that easy. I wish I could just write a script and everybody just hand them the script and then they let them go and then they turn over a new leaf. It just doesn't work that way. It's like therapy. It takes time. They got to understand. Not only if you want to really win them over, once you get them to the peaceful resolution and they agree to that, it's a lot of follow up after that. I mean, it could take weeks to get them to finally get on board and understand and how to. I want them to learn how to do this so they can use it on other cops. I want this to breed people that just go out and speak, just grab a microphone and a speaker and just stand on the corner. Just get the word out there. You know, there's peaceful option. You have discretion. Let's create a peaceful world by declawing the politicians and empowering the guys with the guns to protect the peaceful people from the politicians.
Yeah, that's a great point. We did a little activism in Carmel. We took a bullhorn and walked through downtown. And
Yeah.
we were opening up the beach, and it's basically, you know, dozens, probably 100 or so people out sitting on the outdoor patio, and they're turning around looking. We say, we now declare the beach open, and informing them the government has no authority over you unless you consent. So that would be interesting because there's going to be a lot of beer and wine.
They
Art.
can't. Wait a minute. Can I correct you?
Yeah.
You can't consent. You can't consent. Not even in their own court would they accept consent when there's a threat of violence, and there's always the threat of violence. You can't consent. All you can do is obey like a slave. Consent isn't an option. Who the hell would consent with being violently punished for disobeying a bunch of politicians?
I have no clue. I have no clue. Well, you know, the only thing that comes to mind, because I try to steer away from using generalizations or universal statements. And, you know, there is something called the indentured servitude, where, like, back in the days, you know, I'm going to indenture myself to you for 7 years, and then I'm going to, you know, work off my debt to take me over the Atlantic on a boat trip or something. So, yes, nobody has authority over you, period. That's a better statement. I like to say, no one has authority over you. That's it.
Yeah, you can't consent to any authority that has threats of violence involved. It doesn't make any sense. Nobody would buy that. Look, if we were free and somebody went door to door selling government, and you open the door and they're like, hey, I got a great deal for you. All you got to do is obey countless rules that some politicians come up with and conjure up, and we won't harm you. And you got to give us half your income and we won't harm you. But if you don't do these things, we're going to have to harm you. We're going to have to lock you in a cage like you're a rabid animal. But it's okay because the system works great for everyone.
Oh my gosh. You know what I love?
Sign here. Sign here. Do you consent to us beating the shit out of you if you don't obey us? Sign it. Sign it. It's a voluntary agreement. We won't hurt you much. Dude, there's the whole thing's a threat of violence to force you to obey. You're forced to go to school. Your parents are threatened with violence to
That's right.
force you to go to school, to be indoctrinated, to be obedient, and to praise the obedient and punish the disobedient. And
Oh my
people
gosh.
just don't give a shit about whether harm has been done or not. They're all brainwashed. I wish I could help them all.
Right. I
Because
agree.
once you free yourself of that stuff, you're free. You're living free. Once you can persuade people who coerce you into not coercing you, your world is free. I put it this way: I can't save the world, but I can save a lot of people's worlds. If you learn this, you'll be able to defeat just about anybody who tries to control you. And now you're free because now you don't have to do anything. You know, I drove around with no license, no tag or nothing because I was free. I was confident I could win them over every time. But like I said, I ran into some evil ones, so be careful. I am now. I'm very careful.
Yeah, I noticed it too. I was holding this police officer off when I was explaining the right to travel stuff for it was literally about 90 minutes. And you know, this is supervisor. And finally, he was a nice guy, allegedly. And then I saw something. Well, there was 3 cars behind me, and then they put the SUV in front of my car. They put the lights on, like the top lights, like the floodlights. And then he went from Mr. Nice Guy, Andy Griffith, hey, we just got different definitions, and hey, help me, work with me, this and that, to you open the door now. So that's called the crazy psycho look. And when they get that look, you want to make sure that you comply, unless you want to, get brutalized. Then you want to protect your life at that point. So I've seen that, and the other time I got kidnapped, I didn't recognize it because he was a new guy on the force. So it's a different type of a scenario when they're new and they don't have these tell signs of what they're going to do, but they get that little glisten and they get that little you say, okay, here's my ID, here's everything, because I'm afraid for my life, and that's what you need to know. So anyways, it's like you said, when you're talking with guys, you want to be aware that they might go psycho on you. So learn how to distinguish between that, because this is, as Robert calls it, the most dangerous sales job in the world.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it that, but Robert does. And yeah,
I didn't call it that. You just did. I like it. No, I just said that for me, I've sold a lot of things, but this is the most dangerous sales I've ever done. The prospects are the most dangerous, right? Like when you're in regular sales, someone might slam the door in your face. But if you fail at this, you could get shot. You get brutalized, you get caged. They find out you can run into that cop who now looks at I can't morally justify 20 years of what I've done, and just snap right in front of you. You don't know, right? So that's why I said, let's do Zoom or do it over the phone from a safe distance.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Being pulled over on the side of the road is not safe. And as you instructed, as someone else did, pull it to a private parking area. That's where to go.
Prove it. Pull into convenience store with the cameras and look for the camera and park right under the camera. Have your cameras going. Be in public. You know, never pull on the side of the road where they have you outnumbered and dominating you. I mean, think of like wildlife. They wouldn't even do that. You know, they're not going to expose themselves to where they can be outnumbered and mauled to death. You got to be out in public. You know, I turned on my flashers one time, a couple times actually, and they followed me for miles, actually like 7 miles once down 95, all the way to the gas station. I had my flashers on. And I was doing the speed limit. And I was on the phone with my dad, talking to him, telling him what's going on. By the time we got off, there was an exit. There was 4 or 5, I think it might have been 5 cop cars behind me. And I'm in the gas station, and I put my camera up on the dashboard. This is a while ago. It's an old style home video recorder. I put it on the dashboard, and the cop comes up. Well, first it was in my hand. He said it might be a gun. I said, "Oh, come on, please. This is not going to be a gun." He goes, "Oh yeah, they have guns disguised as cameras." And I'm like, "No, they don't." I
Oh
know,
my God.
this is James Bond, maybe. Yeah, yeah. I've been to stores. I've never seen it on the shelf. It ain't gonna happen, man. So anyway, I put the stand up, put it on the dashboard, and I talked to him. This is the first time I really started doing this, and I wasn't even meant to do it, you know. But after that, I learned to get out of the car, and he stood here and talked to me, and it was over something stupid. But I'm just saying that you want to be as safe as you possibly can. Do not pull over on the side of the road. I've had people that I've helped in the past. I found this one woman who she did that. She pulled off on the side of the road, and then she took off, and then they chased her to her mom's house, ripped her out of the car with the seatbelt, stomped on her head. It's just horrible. Don't put yourself at risk. Like I said, you know, I mean, you're dealing with very dangerous people, so treat it like a dangerous situation. I always expect, like you said, I expect the worst, you know, or prepare for the worst. And
Expect the
sometimes
best,
I
prepare.
expect
Yeah.
Well, sometimes I expect the worst too. It depends on how the first few lines go. You know, talking and the times that I wouldn't say this didn't work, because the 2 times that the cops caged me, and the 1 time that they brutalized me, I didn't get to do any of this. There was no opportunity to win them over. They were like robots, you know. There was no talking to them. They weren't going to answer nothing. And the more I said, the madder they got. Like I said, this is risky. In person, you don't know what you're going to get. I suggest doing Zoom or phone calls. Geez, just call up your local sheriff or call up any sheriff anywhere, you know, and just start asking them these questions. Say, "Hey, I'm just curious. How can you morally justify threat of Well, I would open up like that. You might want to do a little warm up first, you know, get to know them, let them talk a little bit. I mean, I'll teach you how to do it. We'll do it. Let's get on the phone and do it someday, like soon.
Yeah. Well, we'll set that up.
Let's
Who knows, the
call
next
the
week or two, because I think it would be great if we use technology, because many people are a little bit leery about going up to the cops and saying, "Hello, how many laws do you enforce today?" or whatever the opening line is.
Well,
It takes a lot of courage.
you can't do that until after you've done this role play a lot and practice, you know, I would suggest practicing on the phone, calling up the local sheriff or deputy, or catching them at breakfast or something, you know. I've been wanting to do that, offer to pay for their meal if they just talk to me a little bit, you know. 10 minutes is all I need, and video record it. And so when it's a safe situation, I would do it. But like if you're on the side of the road and they're being the most violent bully, whatever, like I said, don't go to the side of the road, go to the gas station, whatever. Banks have cameras that run all the time. Um, and things go south. I mean, you know, you gotta, I would rather you just look, I'm still nervous.
We lost the Robert. You there? We might have lost him. If you guys want to do a role play, we can. Maybe his phone died. Let's see.
I found the wrong foot. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You got to start from get go not obeying in a polite way, in a funny way, in an encouraging way to get them to talk. It has to start like that. If you've already started talking about law and this and that and other stuff and the why they pulled you over, that it loses you don't even get to start the momentum, right? If you try starting it after that, it's a little too late because they already got their hooks in you because you're already talking about law, right? That puts you in a hole. You got to climb out of that hole now because now he thinks you're a law guy. You understand law, and he doesn't understand law, but he's going to have to save face by using violence to prove you wrong. I mean, it's just a mess. You don't want to go down that road at all, right? Stay focused on the threat of violence. The first threat of violence is when they turn their lights on. How do you morally justify forcing a peaceful person off the road? Now I haven't done that one yet because most of the times there are cops coming up to me because I was, suspicious vehicle or something, or somebody called the police on me or something. But I only got pulled over a couple of times. This is a work in progress. Don't get all cocky with it. But I'll tell you, once you start closing deals, once you start getting cops and they start agreeing and saying, hey, I can't argue with that. You're right. This is much better. You'll have the confidence to use it if you got pulled over. I'm just scared people are going to take 5 or 6 things that sound cool and try using them. And then they don't know where to go after that. You know, what are you going to say when he comes up with his objection that you've never heard? And I can't tell you all the objections. It's countless. I don't know how many objections they have or how they're going to say them all. All I can say is let's talk about it. Every time we do it, we go over what happened, and then we start knocking these objections down before they even come up. You want to get the objections out of the way. I mean, if I see a lot of lick marks on his boots, I mean,
my question
so you
is
have
this.
A lot of fans, huh?
Well, there's smart people watching this video. And so my question is to you and to them and anybody watching later, what type of innovative, creative, fun, humorous ways can we have this conversation with cops? What conversation? How do you morally justify using violence against a peaceful person? So, we have summer around the corner. There's going to be these wine and art festivals. You can get booths. You can have signs. We can have tables. We can have conversations, so people are aware of the criminality, what's happening, especially after this last year of the scamdemic. The mainstream media tries to make us feel like a mouse when we are actually mountain lion. We are a huge creature of love, of peace, of joy, and enthusiasm for life. We love our life. We love each other. They're peaceful, So what can we do? For example, at some of these fairs, there's the $5 and you get to throw a softball at the water tank, right? And try to make somebody fall. That's a funny little gimmick. It's not educational, but it's fun. So somehow a conversational piece, I don't know, 5 minutes for $5 or 10 minutes for $5, come persuade me that the police are not using violence against peaceful people or something, something. We need some help out there, but some of the other open, free, creative minds to take some of the content that we're discussing today and in the past and incorporate them into a fun video, some type of fun media. And maybe it's a cartoon. Maybe it's, it's an interview, a song, some art or poetry, but it would be beautiful to take some of these concepts that Robert's talking about. And as he just stated, not 5 or 6 of these concepts, all 30 of them, how to bundle them up and make it fun for the world. Because my friends, we are on the right side of history. It's not okay to use violence against peaceful people. There is no moral justification for it. And we are the ones to come up with the solutions because we have extracted ourselves from the left-right paradigm of statism. And we need this ruler. We need that ruler. And it's not going to matter if Gavin Newsom gets recalled in California. It's not going to matter significantly, right? We don't need another ruler. So we have to have a conversation, and it is going to take time. But what we're doing is planting seeds just like Lysander Spooner planted in 1870 when he wrote the book, The Constitution of No Authority. And he decimated any perceived authority that the Constitution might have over you or I. And that has been 150 years ago. So let us also take a step, take a role in the future of humanity who will say, yes, these morality auditors have come around and started auditing the morality of the police officers, the morality of the DA, the morality of the sheriff, the morality of anybody. And any good person out there is not going to be able to justify using violence against a peaceful person. So these ideas are bulletproof. And like Victor Hugo said, an ideas whose time has come is more powerful than all the armies in the world. So it seems to me that morality and peace and truth are on our side. So, we want to open it up and let's do some role play. I open it up if anybody wants to make some suggestions about the scenario. We did some police stops last week, and I want to do one about selling food on the side of the road. Let's say Santa Cruz, we have the boardwalk. It's a beautiful beach location with amusement park rides. And 4 or 5 months ago, maybe 6 now, there was a bunch of Mexicans who were selling their churros, selling their corn, and they got arrested. They had their equipment seized. So if you're open, Robert, let's play out that scenario where I will be the sheriff for the local police department, and you'll be the vendor of whatever type of products. Let's just call it food products. And you're on this boardwalk, which is a public sidewalk, effectively, or on the beach. They actually had their own little stand on the beach itself by the volleyball courts, and out there selling even little toys, little plastic toys to dig in the sand. And these cops came and seized their property and also kidnapped them because of this violation. Would that be a good scenario, or do you?
How did it start out? When was the first threat of violence? What happened?
People were selling these products, these toys and this food.
Oh, I know, but where was the first threat of violence? What happened? Did a cop walk up?
The cop came up. The cop came up and said,
one?
I think it was 1 or 2. Let's call it 2, just for the sake of the conversation. 2 cops came up, walked up to them. Sorry, guys, you can't be selling your food and your toys on the beach.
To everyone, or just one of the people? They yelled it out?
No, they walked up to the vendor. Like a vendor has like a cart. Let's say one of those pushing carts.
Individually. So that's what I'm saying, though. Did he make a public announcement, or was he both of them were individually going up to the person and saying what?
Individually to the 2 people. There was 2 people selling the products, the food.
Right.
And he says, sorry, guys, you can't sell your products here. You need to leave.
Well, what part of that are you sorry about?
Well, I know you're making money out here, but it's my job to enforce the codes, and the codes say nobody's allowed, no vendors are allowed on the beach.
Okay, but you said you're sorry, so I was wondering, why does this make you feel bad?
Well, I'm doing my job. You're probably good people, but you guys need to leave right now.
You feel bad doing your job? How do you sleep at night?
I have a nice bed, and I don't break the law. You guys are breaking the law right now.
I'm tempted to go into something else, but okay.
This is all for fun. It's all for fun, educational purposes. Feel free.
Well, no, you just bring that up. It makes a whole nother thing I want to talk about, but I don't want to talk about that right now. So let's stick with this. All right. So what was your last line?
You're breaking the law. My job is out here keep people safe. It would be unfair if everybody could just sell. There'd be trash everywhere. Everybody would throw their stuff. So I need you guys to leave right now off the beach, or we're going to take your stuff.
You're gonna take our stuff? Like you're going to keep it for yourself? You're gonna steal it?
Well, you're breaking the law. So
confused.
yeah, so the law allows for me to seize any assets in the course of any forfeiture, which you guys, I don't want to take your stuff, but if you don't leave right now, you're going to force me to take your stuff.
I'm gonna force you. So how am I threatening you with violence?
Well,
Are
you
you,
guys got to keep the law. You guys got to obey the law over here. You know, we got to have a civil society, and everybody can't just go breaking the law. You know, it would be anarchy and chaos.
yeah, but I don't feel good about doing something that's gonna make you feel bad. So how about we just leave peaceful people alone? Fair enough?
I wish it was that easy, sir. You know, I don't make the laws. You know, if you want to change the laws, you can see the code there right on the sign. It says no vendors, no food selling on the beach. You can get a permit, you know, maybe the city will allow this to happen, but I'm just doing my job, you know. So and I think they probably give you a permit. You know, it's a good weather out here, and so it looks like you got some good food products for the people, but without a permit, you're not allowed to sell on the beach.
All right, so without a permit, I have to get permission. So I have to pay somebody to keep you from hurting a peaceful person. How can you morally justify that?
I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm giving you fair warning to remove
Whoa, whoa,
your
wait a
cart.
minute. You're not gonna hurt me. You just said you're gonna steal my stuff. You don't think that's gonna
Yeah.
hurt me?
Well, that's a civil asset forfeiture. No, then you can go get it from evidence. You know, you can go get it from evidence in the next few days.
If I took all your stuff, would that hurt you?
Yeah, that would.
Okay.
But
Then
I'm
how
not
can you
breaking the
morally
law.
justify taking my stuff?
I'm not breaking the law, sir. You're breaking the law.
All right, how many laws are there? Just tell me how many there are so I know, and let me write them down.
I hate being the cop, just so you guys know. It sucks.
Just tell me all the
Sir,
laws. You're law enforcer, so what are the laws, man? Tell me all of them.
well, there's probably about 3 or 4,000 codes, laws.
No, name all of them. Tell me all the legalese and everything.
Well, I don't have them off the top of my head. How much time do you have?
I say, listen, all I need to do is see the evidence that I consented to those laws, and I will lick your boots. Fair enough?
Well, I'm not asking you to lick my boots. Just would you get off
No,
the
I
beach?
want to lick them. I want to lick them. If you can prove that those laws apply to me, I will enjoy licking your boots. You'll love it too. I guarantee it.
Sir, are you saying the laws don't apply to you?
I didn't say anything. You just did. You just told me the laws don't apply to me. Thank you. Have a nice day.
That's
That's
great.
all I needed to hear.
That's great. Notice he's
Yeah.
staying calm and chill, my friends out there observing this. I have such a hard time staying cool. You're like super cool, even I'm just like excited and then like emotional. It's like, okay, so sir, it applies to everybody. If you're in California, the code applies to you, and you don't need to consent. Government has legal and righteous authority over everybody here on this land.
And how does that morally justify threatening peaceful people with violence?
Well, I'm not gonna use violence on you. I'm just gonna, just
Well, I'm not going to
repossess.
let you take. I'm not going to let you take my stuff. How are you going to get it?
Oh, well, if you resist, then I'm authorized to use more force to take you away or take your stuff. Now, don't make this harder than it is. We can go the easy way or the hard way.
Well, I would enjoy the hard way, but I think you would enjoy the peaceful way more. Or would you rather use violence, or would you rather be peaceful with a peaceful person? Which one would make you feel better?
Yeah, I'd like to use peace with you, but you're resisting and you're breaking the law. So, you're putting me in a tough spot right now,
Yeah, well, look, you're resisting and I'm not hurting you. So how can you morally justify hurting me for resisting? You keep resisting me. I'm not locking you up.
I have nothing. Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're free to go. I
Hey,
don't
if they
know.
get frustrated and let me go, that's still a win.
Yeah. So what I feel in that is like you're not being antagonistic. Whereas some of the encounters that I've had and I've watched people, the people get, oh, you do that? Oh, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do this and that. It's
Yeah,
like
right.
nobody likes that. But
Yeah.
you are just like, oh, you're just kind of like, oh, come on, man. You know, I'm not using violence against you, which would be better for you, which would be peaceful for you, you know? And I think that's a really important part. Have you noticed anything in your research and experience about the demeanor of the person talking with the cop, the tonality? Do you want to speak to a little bit about that? Because that's what I just noticed in that role play. Because you were being nice to me, I had no animosity toward this fake scenario being a fake cop.
No, you just kept trying to sell me on the law. That's what they
Mhm.
do. They're always trying to sell me on the law. You know,
Right.
I've had that happen more than I can count. I mean, I had one cop, he's like, come on, man, listen, all you gotta do is take the tint off your windows, get a tag, get license renewed, and get your insurance. You go to court and the judge drops everything. I mean, he's like selling me on it.
That's
And I'm
right.
like, why would I want to do any of that shit? I got other
Right.
things to do. I don't want to do any of that stuff. You know, it's just,
No, I
I
felt
had
that
another,
too. Go
yeah,
ahead.
another cop was like, hey, listen, I got three choices. I can arrest you, I can give you a bunch of tickets, or I can do nothing. I said, I'll take that last one. What was that? 3 or C? The one where you do nothing. You know, like you found me doing nothing. Fair enough.
Right.
And it was great.
Mm-hmm.
Just great. They got nowhere. They got nothing. All they got is using law as an excuse, and I burn that down. It's just not worth talking about. I don't want to discuss the law or the Constitution or anything else that's open to interpretation. I want to hear the moral justification for threatening a peaceful person with violence. Is that too much to ask?
You see how he
For
said that?
some, maybe.
Is that too much to ask? See how just nice and just calm that is? For me, I say, how do you justify using violence against a peaceful person? Is that too much to ask?
Right?
That's the difference. That is different. So I'm
Because I'm trying
learning.
to win them over, man. I'm trying to bring them on board because I know once they get up on moral high ground, they're gonna love it. They're gonna love it.
Yeah.
You gotta just, it's a very passionate thing because every time I've had to do it, the threats of violence were huge. And so it makes me think harder of what can I say to win this guy over? What can I say to get him to see this? And all it is getting them to look at it themselves. And then, of course, like I said, it takes a lot more than that. I mean, you got to prepare for them reeling back, going, oh, it's going to be chaos. It'll be anarchy. Well, you got to be prepared for all those conversations.
Right. Right. And
Just
so
please
what I,
don't think
Mhm.
it's simple.
Okay, it's not simple. Yes. What I would say, noticed when we were doing the role play and I opened up with, hey, I'm sorry that I gotta do this, but I gotta ask you to leave. Out of all the entire words that I said, Robert focused on the sorry part. He says, why you feel sorry? And so he extracted that conversation. So then eventually I was avoiding saying, I feel sorry for doing this to you. And then he's going to use it against me and say, well, you don't have to, just let me go, peaceful peace. Because I'm trying to give him the challenge because he's obviously very sharp and articulate. And any normal cop, I think, is going to be, okay, you're right. All right. Get out of here. Peace. Okay, man, whatever. But
Oh, you
it's
know what
the
I should have brought up is you have discretion. I forgot. You have discretion so that you have a peaceful option and you have using law as an excuse to do bad things that make you feel bad because you said you're sorry, right? So would you rather use your discretion and leave a peaceful person alone? Then you won't have to feel sorry and I won't have to be threatened. Fair enough.
right.
You won't feel sorry. I won't feel threatened. Everyone's happy.
Right. So he incorporates the sorry, it's good for me, and then everybody's happy. I mean, how do you say no to that other than if you're a psycho or a
Yeah, you
sociopath.
could be a psycho and go crazy. It's possible, but I say it's rare.
Yeah. And I do believe in the human spirit and human dignity, and the media, promotes certain things, but also I've realized that the audience and maybe some of the people watching this later will be police officers. So, we want to have this conversation so that the police officers, the good ones, can say no to the tyranny, because the tyrants don't return the freedom that they've taken. They only take more. So what we're seeing in the urban areas and many places in California, New York, it's not going to come back to freedom until people start discussing it, exercising it, and having these conversations. We can no longer have these conversations in the closets, in the basements. We have to bring it out to the open. Why? Because it's good. Speaking about morality, wrong and right. How are you harming us? How are you letting us be in peace? This is a really important component for us to realize that it is now time to discuss these things, whereas in the past we could have waited. Our parents or our grandparents, they could have waited and delayed, but we're looking at Agenda 2030, and they're putting kindergartners and first graders in 6 feet circles. They have their musical bands playing in these little tents, not because there's a virus. We know there isn't a virus that's killing all these people in masses. It's training. It's obedience training. So how do we pull them out of that is to talk about it. And I'm just going to try to give my nice police conversation here. Maybe Robert will role play with me. He's the kind of guru on this, or maybe someone else. If anybody else wants to do some role play, feel free to jump in.
I'll do it because I think I know how the cops behave, which isn't as nice as you.
No, good.
In my
Okay, you want to?
they don't have, they're not down for really having a long conversation. So
Correct. They got to go. They have important business to take care of.
yeah, they want to make it, 2 minutes. Any crime they investigate is like 2 minutes.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So you want to be the police or you want to be the driver, Katrina?
Oh, we're doing driver. Oh, I guess I shouldn't, because we're not doing that anymore in our town. They're not pulling people over anymore for expired license and stuff.
Yeah. No, you can
Yes, I don't
be.
know how to respond to that, because they're not allowed to do that anymore. They've taken too much advantage of it in our town.
That's in Berkeley, California, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's
Thank
interesting. I
God.
want to look. Yeah, because that's interesting. I want to look into that. We can have that another conversation. Okay, so what scenario would you like to role play?
I think maybe like them, us having a picnic, because it's so bad to have a picnic. So,
Okay. All right. So you'll
without
be at the
masks.
park. Do you want to be the police woman or do you want to be the resident sitting on the beach?
I'll be the policewoman.
You want to be the police woman? Okay. And Robert, is your connection lost? How you doing there, man? I can try to unmute you.
Yeah,
man.
just trying to get situated here. Am
Okay.
I doing? I thought you were going to be the victim here. No?
No, we're learning from you today. You don't have to put the video on, just do the audio. And Katrina, if you want to do the police, and the scenario is you are on at the park, you're having a picnic, and any other setup, Katrina, you wanna
We're at a picnic. We're not wearing masks. We're not sitting 6 feet apart. People have called because we're not sitting 6 feet apart and there's too many of us.
okay.
Come
Okay.
on, David, give it a shot, man.
At a
I want to
picnic.
hear you try it.
Okay. All right. All right, Robert, because you insist, but I want to hear you, Robert, because you got the greatest stuff. But okay, maybe. Hey, Robert, you chime in. You're with me at the picnic, okay? You're second in command. We're
All
just
right.
having.
I'll
all
bail
right?
you out if you get in trouble. Go ahead.
There you go. All right. All right. So, all right, Katrina, go ahead and Me and
Give 'em
Robert
hell.
are in deep thought and in conversation. We're buddies. We're talking on the grass, and we're having a great time getting ready for a bonfire on the beach later. And we're strategizing how we're going to train people with sales, business, and freedom conversations. So we're just hanging out
Oh,
on the park.
another thing I'd like to add is that I was at a picnic, and another way of abuse that they did was moving us 3 times in the same area 3 times.
Oh
So
my gosh.
so I
And
just
you
wanted
guys
What
to
do you
put that-
mean
complied.
moving you?
moving us around. Yeah. Oh, move over there. That's a new thing. Dude, have you ever heard?
That's how
of
they
that?
establish control over you
Yeah, like
mentally.
moving
They
someone 8
start giving you
times to a
orders.
different
Here,
area.
they do that in court too. Stand up, move over here, do this. I don't like it. I don't stand for it. What if I don't move? What are you willing to do to me? I mean, I throw them off big time with that one. I'm like, they have to ask me nicely, and then I'll decide if I move.
Yeah, that was a new thing for us. I mean, we were at the same location, but they moved us 3 times. Okay. So their excuse was, oh, what if somebody wants to come eat here, even though it's a public spot with a table? Oh, there might be other people that might want to use that table, even though it's a public place like a park. So we go to this table. Oh, someone else might want to eat at that public table. We go to that table. So
Well, yeah, they're just bossing you around to take control. That's how they get their hooks in you. That once you start obeying, then it's nothing but obedience after, and then they feel empowered to hurt you if you don't obey.
yeah. Okay, so am I gonna be, who am I the police to? David or?
Yeah, David, come on, man, give it a try. I'm right here with you, bro.
Yeah, no,
just-
me and me. So here's the scenario, Katrina. Me and Robert hanging out, chatting, having a beer, enjoying the sun on the grass, getting ready for the bonfire, just talking strategy and project and business launch, and all of a sudden, you, Officer Katrina, comes over, and Katrina, what are you gonna tell me and my buddy Robert here?
We got a phone call that you've been breaking the COVID laws around here. You're not 6 feet apart, and that is against the law of the state of California. You could be going to jail for that right now. You're eating at a park. You're sitting. You both are sitting too close to each other.
Oh, okay. I know. I
You
have a
need to
hard
go.
time
You
keeping
need to
That
go.
just
You
sounded
need to go to
that
that
sounded
table.
wrong.
You need to go to that table over there in case somebody at this public table wants to eat at this public table. So how about you go to that public table right now?
Oh, well, hello, officer. Hey, I'm just hanging out, me and my buddy. We're just talking a little bit of business here. And I respect you as a human, and it would violate my moral principles to do what you're asking, because I prefer just to sit here. Would that be okay with you if we just sit here for the time being?
No, it's against the law for you to sit too close. I will take you to jail if you sit too close. Move 6 feet apart right now and put your
Oh,
mask on. Put your
oh,
mask on.
oh my
It's a
gosh.
state park rule to put your mask on.
Oh, Officer Katrina, I hold on. Wow, I didn't know you were gonna be using violence against peaceful people. Is there some way that you can justify that morally, please?
I have nothing to say to you. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to explain anything to you.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You don't have to explain anything, and we're not really harming anybody, and we're not violating
You're
anybody.
spreading your diseases.
Wait a minute. What do you mean you're right? Did you just say she was right? What?
No, I don't know.
You're
Did I say
spreading
that?
the
What did I
diseases
say?
around.
I
No.
must have ended up in the wrong Zoom room.
It's so here's my challenge, Robert, as I want to find agreement, but see, you can hear every word. I just kind of go over it, and I try to pick out what I'm going to say next, and so you choose the words. What did I say you're right to?
I don't know, but she ain't right about anything. She's threatening you with violence. She's threatening you, and it's
No,
all wrong.
no. She said I don't have to do anything.
What do you mean you don't
You
have to do
need to get
anything?
up and go to that other table in case some people come by and want to eat at your table.
Yeah.
You're saying.
Now she's giving you an order, a command, and then you just simply say, well, what if I don't obey? What are you going to do?
Right. As my friends had said here, Miss, if we don't obey, what are you going to do to us?
Well, you're breaking the California COVID law.
So will you just let us sit here as peaceful people on the grass, or are you going to use
No,
violence
that's
against
not
us?
peaceful because you're spreading your diseases.
You have evidence of that? You can
Yeah,
prove
you're
that?
not wearing a mask. That's a disease. And you're sitting
No, you
too
just
close.
made a claim that
We've
we're
got 3
spreading a
complaints.
disease.
We've
Can I
gotten
have
3
a,
phone calls made on you guys.
but you made a claim that we're spreading a disease. I was just wondering, you have evidence to back that claim up.
Yeah, you're not wearing a mask, and so that's a disease. You could be having a disease
right,
right
but
now
you're-
because you're not wearing a mask. You could be having it, and you could be, spreading it.
there's a lot of coulds in there. I was wondering what evidence you had.
That's what the state's law says.
Right, but you made a
That's
claim
what
that
you're
we're
doing.
spreading a disease. I'm just trying to make a point. That's
No,
all.
I'm just saying that's what the state says, and this is the law. When you don't wear a mask, you're spreading your disease.
Okay, but you have no evidence to prove that we're spreading a disease. You're just making a claim.
You know
Right.
what? I'm going to give you both citations for indecent exposure if you don't go over to the other
Decent
table.
exposure. Say, well, I'm going to give you a moral citation for not being able to justify what you're doing.
I justified it. It's a law.
Battery low. Oh, I lost it.
Me?
No, the battery died. My thing. Hold on a second. I gotta get my other piece.
We can wrap up, man. We've
I
been on
didn't
here for
hear
over
that.
2 hours. Your battery died for
Say that
what?
again. Now I can hear you.
Oh, your
So what was
Bluetooth.
that last one? She was threatening me. Something.
I'm going to write you both a citation for indecent exposure for not going to the other table and not
Write
wearing a
you a
mask.
moral
You're breaking
citation
COVID.
for
You're
being a
breaking the
jerk.
state of California law, and it is a crime to not wear a mask and sit too close to each other. I'm going to write both
Oh.
of you a citation for COVID exposure and indecent exposure.
And do you have evidence that proves I consented to that law?
I don't have to have evidence. You don't have to. I don't have
You
to
don't
have
have to have
evidence.
evidence. Wow. You've never gone to court? So you're not a cop. No courts? What are you then? Are you private security? Do you
I
just
don't
think
have to
you're a
answer
cop?
that question.
Are you impersonating a cop?
No, I don't have to answer that question. This is what they tell me too when I talk to them like this. They say I don't
I
have to
know
tell
these
you.
cops are the dumbest people.
Oh, I had that.
Oh,
They
gosh.
tell us like how we say we don't have to tell them. They tell
Joe-
us we don't have to tell
Joe Lopez. Have you seen the Joe Lopez where I interviewed him?
Yeah.
He says, I don't have to answer that. I had to ask him 3 times. I said, you're in the witness box. I'm asking you in front of the jury. What are you going to tell the jury? And then he finally answered, said, I can't morally justify it. They can't. They can legally justify slavery. They can legally justify murder. They can legally justify anything they want, which is control, money, punishment. It's horrible. But they can't morally justify any of it. And it's really, strange because prosecutors do it all the time. They put their targets on the stand and say, how could you morally justify not walking away when you had the opportunity? Well, that's what I'm doing. I'm just doing it at the cop. How can you morally justify not walking away and using laws as an excuse to harm peaceful people? You can do this in court too. I'm willing to go to the jury anytime I'm talking to a cop. That's why I video record them, so I have evidence of their replies. So when I go to the jury, I say, look, I gave him a peaceful option and he chose to use law as an excuse to harm me. I'd rather do that in the jury. Hell yeah. So you got to be willing to go to the jury to do this. Remember, when I'm talking to a cop, I imagine all of what we're saying going in front of a jury.
Right. This is the conversation. The jury, the court begins the moment we talk with these guys.
Yeah, I'm gathering evidence for the jury. That's all. I had one cop, I had a whole bunch of cops. There's 5 of them all together. But one of them noticed my camera. I used to record them without them knowing when I first started up in North Carolina. And he goes, you got a camera? And I was like, yep. He says, you recorded all that? I said, yep. He says, where are you going to post it? I said, nowhere. It's just for evidence in case you guys use violence against me. Then I have proof that you had a peaceful option.
Yeah.
And then, it's look, I'm trying to help them. I'm trying to win them over. I'm not trying to prove them wrong or treat them like shit, but you got to find a window of opportunity. Like the way you came at me, it's like I'm trying to get you to just question me. Once I get you asking questions, then I got you. I mean, we can keep going if you want. I mean, maybe you don't break down, maybe you do. But like I said, this isn't 100% all the time, every time, right? I mean, if a cop comes up to you, get out of the car, and you're like, hey, how can you morally justify that? And he screams, get out of the car. You might want to get out of the car. I don't want to get hurt. I'm not going to get killed over this. And then what good am I if I'm dead? I can't help anybody.
Right. So this is the kind of keeping the mindset, like I mentioned, the guy who was jaywalking. We're not trying to conquer the mountain in one conversation. We have to have an exit point where we're like, okay, we're at risk and I'm going to comply like a slave. Although I did my best to speak up for myself. But the fact that this mafia member is, going to have no justice if he kills me. And I like to live. I'd like to live a long life and have, family and friends and parties for, a few more decades. So there is an exit point where you pull the parachute and you say, okay, whatever you want. But I think it's a fine line because I've had cops where I'm talking to them and the one time I had the 90-minute standoff with the cop and I was inside my car and he was, outside. He was nice. And all of a sudden he got the evil look in his eye. And I said, okay, I'm getting out. I'm afraid for my life. You're going to harm me. I'm out of here. I got into the car and he said, okay, I'm going to give you one more chance. Do you want to sign the citation and be on your way? And I thought about it for a few minutes. I said, give me a few minutes to think about it. And he came back to the window when I was handcuffed in his car. And I said, okay, man, I'll sign it. And then he said, sorry, man. The lieutenant said, once I have you in handcuffs, you can't sign the document. I was just like, you bastard. Okay. So anyways, there was at some point where I was willing to sign and they wouldn't let me, I think maybe because some lawsuit, like once you have somebody captured, then it's obvious duress that you force the contract, and any contract that is forced upon you is invalid. And I can cite some codes and laws later, but we're talking about morality here and the illegitimacy of government in general. Over us. So anyways, the point was an exit point. Don't die over this, my friends. What we're trying to do is have a conversation with the cop. We're trying to help the cop, help the future victims of the cop, maybe help his wife, maybe help his kids, his dog, his neighbors. But we have to have a conversation because they're not going to hear, how do you morally justify using violence against a peaceful person, officer? They're not going to hear that anywhere on the planet except from your eye. And as we make these videos, we'll include some of this in the conversation. Hopefully we can get some lovely ladies like you all and handsome gentlemen out there making these types of videos as well. And we got to figure out the hidden camera situation so we can document it and not be, waving this thing around when that creates them to be nervous. So, if you have any ideas about hidden cameras, send me a message or put it in the comments. So that's a great point there. Thanks for participating. Now, anybody else want to do some role play? We're wrapping up on the 3rd hour here, and we're trying to extract as much knowledge as we can from Robert. This is a great time. I appreciate you guys for hanging around and for joining us. Robert, what do you think as we've been here and going over a lot of the main important issues here? what's on your mind as we wrap up here for the next 10, 15 minutes?
Well, the cops, look, you're dealing with people who think that they're doing good, most of them. All right, not all of them, but a lot of them, the ones I talk to, are trying to do good. I've seen them with their head down. One cop, he felt bad because the some guy said, "Put your hands up" or something. He put his hands up when he came in the store, and the cop felt bad. Some other guy was trying to console him. He's like, "Oh, it just hurts, you know. I'm trying to do good here, and people treat me so bad." I just couldn't. Yeah, I kind of felt for the guy, right? I mean, he probably got into it thinking he'd be a hero and loved, which he is, because that's what they do. But there's a lot of them feel a lot of shame, you know, because they're treated so badly, and it's not by the violent criminals; it's by peaceful people that treat them badly, you know, because they're so cruel. And I feel bad for those guys. You know, I wish I could reach all of them. You know, I should have talked to that guy, but I wasn't even awake yet when he was crying in the convenience store. But you know, you got to think about it, man. They're human beings, and they're given this job, and they're told to do these things to people, to hurt people. That's a good thing. So they think they're doing good, and that's a good thing. If you can get a cop that thinks he's doing good, then you got a chance to get him to actually do good, right? You know, because he doesn't know there's an option. He didn't know there's peaceful option. He doesn't know his discretion lets him walk away anytime he wants. He can walk away from a violent act. He, you know, people could be beating someone up and he could just walk right by and it doesn't mean nothing, right? He's not going to get in trouble. Cops don't get in trouble for not showing up. I think they tried that a couple of times, right? Tried suing them because the cops didn't show up. They're not, they're, like I said, they're sovereign,
Remember
right?
that stand down order in the stand down in Berkeley when there was a Republican speaker and they were there, but they just watched people get attacked.
Yeah,
They knew, they
and
knew
then
that there was a threat of violence if that Republican speaker came. And that, so there were a bunch of police, like maybe, 600 of them, but they stood there while people got attacked.
well, yeah, I mean, look at the riots. You know, there was even cops that were filling up shopping carts. I mean, they can ignore the law anytime they want. I mean, they didn't go into the autonomous zone, right? They don't go to where they don't go into the really bad neighborhoods, right? They're not in there fighting the Crips and the Bloods and trying to shut them down. They
Nope.
operate with more gang members every year. All gangs get more members every year. They're not trying to stop the violent gangs, right? They can ignore the laws anytime they want. So why not ignore them when no harm has been done? You know,
Right.
ignore the damn laws. Just ignore them. You don't even need them for violent people. I mean, you don't need a law against rape to stop a rapist, do you? I mean, if rape
Right.
wasn't illegal, would you let it go on?
Right.
I mean, I'd do
Yeah.
something about it. You know, if nobody else was, somebody's got to do something. You're not going to just let guys go around raping women and child molesters and, you know, murderers and shit. Now, what people aren't just going to sit in their homes and close their windows. There's going to be people like me and David out there beating the shit out of them. And I don't need a law to do it.
Right. Right. I think that's another conversation we can have is taking action to help people without quote authority, without quote permission, because it's the right thing to do. This is where it seems to be going, is the law has basically made it so that it's unlawful to do good and it's lawful or legal to do evil. So
There's a lot of good Samaritans getting arrested now, and that never used to be the case. I mean, they're getting arrested, they're being sentenced. People are even afraid to step in and help. So the law is really messed up right now. The police
Right.
are arresting good Samaritans big time.
Well, yeah, people are scared to get involved. They're going to get, you know, caught up in
Arrested.
it. Yeah, but most of the stuff is solved without calling the police. I mean, I can't even count how many times I've seen fights or problems, and people go like, no, 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 let's not involve the police. That happens hundreds of times a minute, probably, where people are like, oh no, let's not bring those guys into this. I mean, why bring a third party into something that can be resolved peacefully among the people involved? Like, let's say somebody come up and punch me in the eye just for no freaking reason, and somebody saw it and tackled them, and the guy gets up and says, man, I don't know, I lost my mind or something, here's $1,000. I'll be like, hey, I'll take a black eye for $1,000. Problem solved. No need to throw anyone in a cage.
Right.
And then what do they do with the violent people? They don't really punish them anyway. I mean, they're
No, they
so
don't. No,
freaking
that's why
white.
we're having such an issue. We're having the biggest issue ever with this whole knockout game, pistol running up more than ever before, coming up to random people, pistol whipping. Like, why? And then you find out, like, what's their history? Oh, they were just in jail for like 1 year for murder. And then they got released. This is what's going on in like New York City and the Bay Area. We're having big issues with dangerous people being out on the streets down here.
Yeah, they
Right.
don't even, I mean, half the murders go unsolved, half the rapes go unsolved. You know, go solve some of those crimes, right?
Right.
But these
Right.
guys, they're not investigators. These guys don't investigate crimes. They're always talking about how people are interfering with an investigation. I know what an investigation is, and they have detectives that investigate, and they ask questions, and they get down to the bottom of it. This is not investigating, locking peaceful people up in cages for disobedience. That's not an investigation. They're absolutely full of shit. You and
And
resist. Go ahead.
and the television shows are run by the state or influenced by CIA and corporate control. What you see on CSI and Law and Order is not how it works. And I was told this by the creator of Threat Management Center in Detroit, where his philosophy is unlike the cops. Cops show up after the crime sometimes. Sometimes they don't show up for hours in Detroit and maybe LA or San Francisco. His philosophy is to prevent the threat, prevent the crime by creating conditions that deter criminals. So what are some of these deterrences? Bright lighting, cameras, maybe a random patrol that goes around with bright lights. So there's different psychological tactics that if you're afraid of criminals coming into your area, you want to implement this. And you can look up a lot of documentaries and interviews. I'm not sure if I released my stuff, but he does, yes, on my Education Options TV YouTube channel, he gave an hour speech and he goes over some of these things, and there's other things on there as well, because safety is important. As Robert mentioned before, if you don't feel safe in your community, you're not going to invest money to build a business. You're not going to invest in your property, your real estate. And so safety is number one. So if you feel unsafe, either you have to change it or leave that area. I mean, this is the only options that we have. The police are not reliable. I don't want to rely on the police. And as we wrap up here, I had somebody rub tear gas on me, or I should say pepper spray, 3 weeks ago on video. He admitted to it on Facebook, confession. And so I was kind of conflicted. What should I do? So I was like, all right, let's see what happens. They're already coming after me for my victimless crimes of driving without plates, evading arrest, and all this other cockamamie victimless crime stuff. Let's see what they do when there's an actual perpetrator who has a confession and has evidence. They have done nothing in the 3 or 4 weeks since. So, we have to really understand that we have to help each other, look into freedom groups, liberty cells, voluntary protections, perhaps peace protection teams, and in the same time have conversations with other people about morality. So yeah, what we see on television is not the real world, and I wish it was, but the real world is right here, what we're discussing, what you're seeing in Berkeley, what we're seeing in Santa Cruz, what you're probably seeing in Florida and Georgia and New York and Southern California. The video evidence is clear. These guys are monopoly gangs and there are probably some good guys in there, and we want to appeal to those good guys. Talk to the guy who joined the police force, who wanted to save people, help people, not extort them, not kidnap them, and not violate them. So just wrapping up here in 5 minutes,
Well-
Robert, I'm going to give you the floor. If there's any final statements, it's all yours, and we can conclude.
If they want to be real heroes, they'll get on board with this. Okay, if they really wanted to be a good person and help, then they need to stand out and take a stand against what's going on, and be a guy that uses your discretion and leaves peaceful people alone, regardless of what anyone tells you. And like I said, if you have a job that requires you to hurt peaceful people, then you quit that job. But it doesn't require it. There's an option of using peace, being peaceful, and walking away. They do it all the time. They do it every day. They did it when I was a kid. They let me go with all kinds of stuff. They turn and walk away all the time. I'm asking them to do it every single time. No harm's been done. Ignore all these politicians' dictates. Leave peaceful people alone. Your life becomes more peaceful. And when you start flipping these guys, you'll see, man. You'll just take off. I can tell. You're gonna be flipping cops the rest of your life, man. It's gonna be awesome.
Robert, I believe you, man. I believe you're a visionary. You're a prophet of freedom and what's happening in society. And, it takes getting beat up. It takes getting kidnapped and extorted and violated to have the willpower. And you heard his story, almost died and had, bones broken, but he's not going to give up. And neither am I. And hopefully neither are any of you hearing this voice, watching my face now or afterwards. This is the calling of our life, I believe, for freedom, for peace, and for love. And it's the same thing as it was 1,000 years ago and 5,000 years ago. We want to be free. It's a gift from God or from nature. And it's up to us to establish the conscious intention, the approaches, the tactics, the words, the scripts, the solutions to what we're seeing right now. And I'm really grateful that we got to spend this time with Robert Landen from peacefulpolice.com. And if you want to help him out, feel free to send him some cash. If you want to help us out on Freedom Lover Show, we'll receive that as well. We do accept anonymous donations, and we do not report anything to the IRS because they also are based on coercion, intimidation, and we don't support those organizations. So I want to thank everyone for participating. Thank you for Katrina and all the listeners who are watching us and learning and understand that you are the freedom ninja, the peace warrior in your neighborhood, just like I'm in mine and Robert is in his, but we're coming together because this is the silver lining of the scamdemic. We're now realizing this is the end game for the criminals that be in these high places of political alleged authority. But if you do not consent, if you do not cooperate, they lose all power. And it's a very exciting thing when you realize what your real power is. The power of one person, the power of two people is remarkable. You're not alone, my friends. So notice as me and Robert were, spitballing back and forth for a few weeks. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep evolving, sharing the solutions, figuring out these problems because we love this life. We love freedom, and we love you guys out there supporting us and helping us just with your comments, your likes, and your support. So thank you so much to Robert, to the viewers, to everyone else, even the police officers who are watching and learning what the other people are doing in the world. We just want peace. We just come in search of harmonious, voluntary relationships. And if you're down with that, you're down with us. If you're not down with voluntary relationships, you're a criminal and you should quit and go live somewhere where you can be violent. But we're not going to accept violence against our women, our children, ourselves, our grandparents, anybody around us. It's not okay to use violence against peaceful people. There's no moral justification for it. And we're grateful that Robert's here helping us realize this and understand this because it's an exciting time to be alive. And it is beautiful that we can breathe and experience this life together as we talk and have this conversation. So thank you, Teresa, Richard, Mike, Katrina, Julia, and of course, Robert. We'll see you next time on the Freedom Lovers Show, where we are building a voluntary world, one transformational relationship at a time. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week, same time, unless you hear otherwise. Otherwise, peace and love to you. We'll see you next. Bye.
All right, you're gonna leave